He's like he's the most jacked punter in the world. He wants to start a fight with everybody that sees.
He catches the ball, sits back on his tail, and kicks it with 2 feet.
That would be terrifying. Could you imagine? No one would rush the punter. No one. I am not getting close to blocking that thing.
45, 40, 35, 40. He's gonna go. It's time people feel us.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. We get better and better. Team is If we die, we die.
Man, woman, and child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln.
All right. It is record prediction week. It is fucking 1 week to games. We are getting excited. And we are excited to have Elijah Herbal in from Hail Varsity Radio on AM 590. You list them off. I don't know all the other ones.
Yeah, we got AM 590, News Talk 900 out in Columbus, 1240 AM KFOR. I'm wearing the quarter zip here tonight. And then we're also the Superstation out in Kearney, Hastings, Grand Island, ESPN Tri-Cities. So kind of all over the place. The fact that it's multiple signals.
I figured it was you.
To be honest, I don't actually know if that's like an actual radio term or not. I've just always heard it referred to as the Superstation. So I call it the Superstation because it's got the multiple signals that cover both Grand Island and Kearney. So multiple signals, Superstation, I guess. I don't know if that's professional terminology to call it the Superstation, but I think it's a lot cooler to do so. So
now that we're all well versed in how AM radio works.
Yeah. Love all our affiliates, by the way,
yes.
Especially ESPN Tri-Cities, but Columbus, Omaha, Lincoln, all of them.
Absolutely. Well, we are getting into the schedule. We're going to do record predictions. Some of us are going to do record predictions. Others will abstain. But just going game by game, breaking this down. Without further ado, we're jumping in on UTEP. I am not very excited about this game just from a standpoint is I don't think there's that much to talk about.
Well, there's not much about UTEP to talk about.
We always kind of are looking for Jed to kick these off with a little bit of an interesting little something or other, but you couldn't even find anything, right?
No, I got nothing.
Absolutely nothing?
Nope.
Offense or defense, something we're going to worry about in this game?
Their offense, I mean, their head coach is coming from Austin Peay. He's a really good offensive coach. They are a pass-heavy offensive team. They're a little bit more probably dink and dunk type team. They completed like 67% of their passes last year. And UTEP as a team last year, I think it was like mid to upper 50s. They did bring over, I think, 11 players from Austin Peay, most of them on offense. So, you know, they're going to know the offense right away. They have 5 new offensive linemen. Or at least 5 new starting offensive linemen. The middle 3 are returning players, but they've got
some experience.
The 2 tackles have experience, but one of them came from Austin Peay. Defense. I mean, they were one of the best pass defenses in the country last year. They were like 17th last year in the pass defense. Mm-hmm. They do have a couple of good pass rushers coming back, but otherwise,
did they play any bigger teams last year?
I didn't look at their schedule last year.
That's interesting, though. They were ranked up there in the passing category.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jed kind of nailed the team preview for UTEP. It's Scotty Walden is the head coach coming in from Austin Peay. Loves a passing attack. I consider this UTEP team a less refined version of the Georgia Southern team that shocked Nebraska and Lincoln a couple years ago. They obviously don't have Clay Helton. I think Clay Helton's a more acclaimed coach. I think that Georgia Southern team had some better talent, especially at the quarterback position. This UTEP team, they're going to try and dink and dunk you. I've written down in my notes, high volume passing attack, offensive line has plenty of questions. That's the primer on their offense. They're going to try to be high volume, dink and dunk. The offense line has questions. It's pretty clear how Nebraska slows down that offense. It's with blitzing and pass rush and trying to take away the quarterback's first read. Defensively, I do think the strength of their team is probably their secondary, as you laid out. They were top 2 passing defense in Conference USA last year. So that could be a concern. It's going to be a good test for Rhule week 1. I think that's the more important storyline here. This is a secondary that has some experience, played well last year. I think Nebraska's still got a massive, massive talent advantage offensively to their defense. Rhule will be able to test himself just a little bit, but I think the game plan for Nebraska is run the ball. UTEP's rushing defense was horrible last year. It's probably going to be bad again this year. I think it's going to be a strong dose of running the ball from Nebraska, and you give Dylan Rhule a couple chances to push the ball deep and test that passing attack, or passing defense, I should say. But yeah, I don't really see how this UTEP team, if Nebraska comes in and does their job, can really even scare this Huskers team.
The only other addition is also
we hope not. But you just compared them to Georgia Southern. Some people probably just shivered a little bit when you said that.
They also
I saw Matt jump.
Their running back also transferred from Austin P. He had 1,300 rushing yards last year and like 10 touchdowns. So
what's that like to have a 1,000-yard rusher?
Yeah. Not just 1,000, 1,300. I mean, for one guy, and like I said, 10 rushing touchdowns for him. So he's a good. But he's like 5'8", like 200 pounds.
Oh, he's a little guy.
So he's a tiny guy.
Yeah, and I don't see their offensive line having any success against the Husker front seven.
No.
That's the problem. They're going to be forced to throw the ball early.
I can say all that about the running back. He's a pretty good running back, but with the brand new offensive line trying to gel together, especially in game one, going up against our defensive line, he ain't going to do anything. But I'm just saying he's a good player. So.
So all I'm really hearing is we don't want any storylines to come out of this game.
No.
We want nothing exciting to talk about.
Nope.
It should be our first. What would this be? Our first opening day win in 4 years?
Oh,
since 2019. Since South Alabama,
Jesus
2019.
Been so long, I can't remember.
We actually talked about that on our show the other day. That Nebraska escaped that South Alabama game. The scoreline wouldn't indicate it to you, but you needed some heroics. J.D. Spielman housed a punt for a touchdown.
Yep.
And then you also had, I think it was Eric Lee with a pick six that day. So the defense and special teams generated 14 points.
The third quarter, I believe, we scored 21 points, and not one of them was an offensive point.
Yep.
That's like the what was the big scare game back before we got real bad that Abdullah had to basically single-handedly bring us. Yeah, McNeese State. There you go.
Yeah, I had a buddy. Shout out my buddy Severin Foster from Lincoln Southeast. He actually played a couple years at McNeese State.
Did he?
Well after the fact of Amir Abdullah, but I was like, oh, look at that Nebraska connection with the team that almost beat Nebraska.
Abdullah throwing off 8 or 9 guys to get to the end zone to save the day.
Have you ever listened?
Little did we know that was kind of the downfall of, or the beginning of the end, I guess.
You can find it on YouTube. Have you ever listened to the McNeese State radio call of that touchdown?
I have. I have heard
electric. If I remember correctly, it's just the commentator yelling "No!"
Yeah. We're gonna have to find that. Put it on the Twitter. Oh, that's funny. So based on everything you've said, it kind of sounds like, is their offense going to be a little bit more of the they pass to run sort of a thing?
Yeah.
You referenced dink and dunk several times. Are they going to kind of incorporate that kind of first, second down as a way to try and get those 3 to 4 yards?
In the FCS last year, I think they were ranked 14th in total offense. So again, I know.
So they're probably also a little bit more up pace too.
Yeah. They are a
good thing for our defense.
A higher pace, yeah, especially going into the Colorado game.
Exactly.
Yes.
But that being said, that was also a head coach ago. With a new head coach coming in, you're never 100% sure if it's a copy paste scheme from what he had at Austin P. If he tries to work with the talent a little bit, there will be some questions with like what UTEP tries to do that game. I still think high volume passing attack is the most likely thing we're going to see from them. But I still, from a talent point of view, just really don't think UTEP is going to match up with Nebraska.
Oh,
and
no.
like there's little things I think you can take away from this game as like a test. Like if a quarterback is going 3 or 5 step drop, can Nebraska get home with their pass rush? I think that's going to be important to see before the Colorado game. Even though Colorado likes to push the ball downfield a little bit more, it's still a good warm up there. What does Dylan Rhule do against a secondary that's wearing another color compared to him? Like what are you doing against an actual other team, not a defense that you've seen since the beginning of spring football?
Sure.
And a pass defense that not going to set the world on fire this year in terms of the greater college football world, but I think they're going to be one of the better pass defenses in Conference USA. What does he look like against that? There's little things to take away from this game, but I don't think the result should be in question.
No.
Not in just a warm-up game for him.
No. Second half,
I mean,
yes,
for Dylan, it's not just a warm-up game for him.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's really not even just a different jersey, but even in front of people. And I know people can say the spring game, but the spring game, we didn't have any defensive players playing.
Yeah.
So it's a live game against live people with live bullets.
Yep.
Which it sounds kind of like, if you're trying to read between the lines on Rhule's press conference after the first scrimmage last weekend, sounds like when the real defense got out there and decided to play a little bit, he wasn't too happy with the offense, which speaks to probably good and bad, I would say.
Well, but that's the way it always is. It's what I always bring up with the spring game. It's like, oh, people are going to cheer for this touchdown, But what about the defense that gave up the touchdown? Like, it's a little give and take there, but that's just the way it goes.
Like,
I just mean if you're finally seeing first team against first team and the defense looks that much ahead that Rhule comes into the press conference looking like somebody just killed his dog, which is what I took at it. Like, he looked pissed for the first time that I've seen him on the podium since a loss last year.
Well, think about it this way. Let's just say, hypothetically, the offense comes out in that scrimmage, moves the ball well, but turns the football over. If you're Rhule, it's a tough place to be in because you're emphasizing it all year long. Like, man, we can't turn the football over. It's great. We're moving the ball against this great defense, and it's a great sign the defense is generating takeaways. But that's what you've been emphasizing all offseason long is we can't be turning the football over as an offense. If that was the case at the scrimmage, you can understand it from Rhule, but still a lot of time to get things right. And at the end of the day, I compare it to all the reports that are coming out, what was that, a week ago about Cade McNamara, his scrimmage with Iowa, where it's how awful it was. Okay, what's your takeaway from that? Is it, man, the Iowa offense sucks again, or is it, man, that Iowa defense is probably pretty good again? There's probably a little bit of both in there, but it's a similar thing with like a scrimmage with Nebraska.
I'm definitely going with they've got a quarterback problem.
I don't,
on top of the good defense, but that's a bad quarterback.
I didn't take anything from it because I never thought McNamara was going to be the starter. Brandon Sullivan's going to be the starter.
Ooh, that's a bold take. I see the potential there. I still think McNamara's your guy, but we'll see.
I just have to say, if the cricket bat can't even throw the ball, he has 0 weapons because he can't run for shit.
No, that's not him. That's Deacon Hill's transferred.
Oh, biscuits and gravy?
Yeah. Do you want to know where he transferred to?
Don't care.
Utah Tech.
Oh.
I didn't know that was a school.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a school.
I should have known that, being the professional here. What the hell?
No. Utah Tech, they started football in like 2006, and they were initially called, like, I think Dixie State Tech or something like Dixie Tech or something like that, and then
Christ.
they changed their name to Utah Tech. They are the Trailblazers, I believe.
We're not going to strike a lot of fear into the hearts of your enemies with here comes Dixie.
Yeah.
Poor Deacon Hill, man. Like, imagine in the transfer portal, like, you were terrible last year. You can't be like, yeah, well, I play for Iowa.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough sell job.
Yeah, I took last year off. I mean, I had some downs, but it wasn't my top ever.
He went from starting for a Power 4 school to Utah Tech.
That nobody even knew existed.
Yeah.
To be fair, being the starting quarterback at Iowa's a low bar.
Just saying.
You're right in line with the punter. Right in line with the punter. We'll get to the Iowa portion of the show here shortly. Matt, did you have anything to add on this?
No, like I said, I want nothing to come out of this game except for a nice, solid win.
Yeah. When I look at their schedule, just real quick on this, we're not their Super Bowl this year, which I kind of expected whenever we have these teams come in. You don't think that they're going to play another big boy school. They play Tennessee the second to last game of the year. That sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Especially because that's an important stretch during their season in November. They might be fighting for some sort of bowl eligibility at Conference USA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tough time to get beat down middle of November.
Especially when Tennessee might be marching down the stretch having to make a statement on some teams. That's going to be rough.
I'm not sure UTEP is a statement they need to make.
You got to play the schedule you're given.
Yeah,
That's
they
for
have
sure.
to make the same statement we do, which is we thumped them handily.
Yeah.
Well, that mid-November SEC quasi-bye week is very much, all right, starters go out there, get us up 3 scores, and then we're just going to pull you guys, hopefully after the first quarter, and we'll let the backups take over and treat it like a bye week. So
It's been a long time since I sat in the stadium and watched a complete snoozer 70-ish to 7 type game. It was a Bo Pelini game, I believe it was the last time we beat somebody down like that. That's the type of game I'm expecting out of this. The spread is currently set at minus 27.5 Nebraska. The over-under is only 48.5, which tends to make me believe that they're trying to call the dogs off pretty early in this one. That's fine if they do, but I hope they don't. I hope that our offense is running efficiently enough that they can't help but score, and that's whether or not we're running or throwing the ball. And so just for that simple purpose, I'm definitely taking Nebraska on this with the spread.
The one question I have with that, given like the fact I think Nebraska is going to win this game handily, do you pull the starters, or from a confidence point of view, is it more important for you to have Dylan? Like, who would you rather have out there in the third quarter getting some reps? Is it your freshman quarterback, Dylan Rhule, that's going to carry you through the whole season? Risking injury, obviously, being out there, but a guy you probably want to get reps for before the Colorado test that comes the week after? Or are you going to be giving those snaps to Jalen Gramstad, to Daniel Kalen? I think that's the big question here is when do the backups get in? How many snaps does Dylan Rhule get? Because I could see this coaching staff saying, hey, Colorado's coming up next week. Let's get you a couple more series here in the third quarter before we eventually pull you. I could see the starters playing longer than we may think because of that factor.
Based on the way Rhule does everything and the way that it's all mapped out with so many reps specific, even in practices, my guess would be that they're going into this game with a set number of reps for each one of their players, whether it be Rhule, whether it be the first team, whether it be on defense. I mean, hell, there's probably 7 guys up front on defense that you're going to say after the first 2 quarters, hey, you can go catch a seat, guys. We're going to get some of these dudes in, see what we've got in some of these young guys. But yeah, absolutely. Any of the youngsters that are going to need to be playing regular minutes, especially Rhule, I think you leave them in there as long as you can, but you have set reps. Mm-hmm. Once you hit those reps, that's cool. You're out. You're done. Personally, I don't think they're going to burn any games on Kalen until at least halfway through the season, just in case they would possibly need him down the stretch.
I think you use him for the UTEP UNI games if you use him at all.
For sure.
I wonder if it becomes
again, if I'm not expecting the 70-7 game like you are. If they get to 50, I'll actually be surprised. So
I wonder if it's going to be a case of, hey, UTEP, we want to see Heinrich Harburg out there playing quarterback in the late third quarter, fourth quarter, or Gramstad. And then Northern Iowa, you look at, hey, this is Daniel Kalen's second half or Gramstad's second half. I wonder if they kind of split it up like that as opposed to going the quarterback merry-go-round in the second half. Try to get some guys all actually get them some meaningful reps before Big Ten season starts.
Yep.
I was curious about the Gramstad stuff, and I was kind of buying into a little bit of the hype, NAIA Player of the Year, all that stuff. Something that Mitch Sherman said in their Locked On podcast, I think on yesterday morning, was that he just looks totally different than the rest of our quarterback room because all of our quarterbacks are big guys.
Yeah.
They've all got big arms, all that. And Gramstad is tiny. And he said it looks kind of like he probably has a little bit of a hard time seeing over our behemoth offensive line that he's not used to having to look over. Yeah, it's one of those. It's kind of the gripes you hear about like a Kyler Murray, where he's got some negatives about him. You know, I think they even talked a little bit about it, like with Tommy Armstrong back in the day. It's like, hey, he's pretty short. He can't see over some of those guys, and sometimes he miss some of those drag routes across the middle, things like that. I don't know if he's going to get as much extra play as what everybody thinks, or if he's really just here to ride the pine and learn how to be a coach.
I would say it would take probably a double whammy of a Harburg and a Rhule injury to get him onto the football field this year, aside from garbage time. I don't think they would ever, under any circumstances, burn Kalen's red shirt. And I could be wrong on that. I think he's a guy that needs a lot more seasoning. I think if it came down worse to it, if you're between Kalen and Gramstad, that's when I think you go Gramstad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it would be preferred for Nebraska to have him on the field in any meaningful snaps this year.
No.
We'll see. I do think, as it stands right now, he's probably quarterback 3 on the pecking order.
Just because of Kalen's red shirt.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a guy that's played a lot of college football versus a guy that hasn't played much college football, still trying to learn the ropes of how do you be a college quarterback. Gramstad's got all that covered. Got I think a better arm than some people expected, but yeah, being short at the Division I level at quarterback is a tough place to be in. We've seen quarterbacks do it before, though. Kyler Murray won Heisman,
especially behind a bunch of 6'8" dudes. Like that's a different story about our offensive line. Is like Ben Scott's the shortest guy at 6'4". It's crazy. Anybody else going to pick on this game, or is it just me?
Yeah, who's picking a loss?
No.
I'm talking spread here. I'm not even like Nebraska lost. Not even in my mind.
Points.
27.5, yeah.
I would take Nebraska with the spread, but I am not taking them to win by 50 points here. I think if they put up 30, 35, I'll be happy. I'll be content.
Okay.
I just want to see any fucking turnovers.
I want 35-0 at halftime.
The spread
don't expect that kind of high-octane offense.
Without making a prediction, I'll say the spread feels about right. If Nebraska takes a multi-score lead, they're going to pound the rock. That might be a game where if you're up by enough at halftime, there is not a single passing attempt in the second half. And that's the one thing that could maybe get the backdoor cover for UTEP is you're just running the ball in the second half and they keep the starters in, you have the backups in. But I think 27 feels about right. A 4-score game seems right.
Jade, anything?
We're going to win.
Bold.
Done and done. On to the one that everybody wants to say fuck you to. Colorado. This is a game that I don't know as much about their team as I do probably any more than UTEP just because of how much turnover they had. We know who their quarterback is. We know who their superstar wide receiver / corner is going to be.
You might know as much as they do about their team. with all the new
including
guys.
their reporters, if
Yeah.
you're going to ask any questions at their
no shit.
press conferences. I was surprised when I saw this. Like I've heard touchdown line on this game for a lot of people. When I actually saw you send this over, I was like, wow, Nebraska's favored by 7 already to come into this game. It feels like one of those games that we should put them in their place and say, hey, last year was a fluke. Your stadium crowd noise got to us, all the hoopla and
It
we
wasn't
got
that
to
loud.
us.
I was there.
Yeah, whatever. I'm just saying,
No, it wasn't.
if Matt Rhule's going to use it as an excuse, I'll let him use it. But my whole point is this. Last year was a Fugazi bullshit moment. Cool, you got to us. We're not doing it this year, and that's kind of what my feelings are going into this game, is that they're just the exact same team they were last year with a little less of the attention because ESPN and Fox have said, yeah, well, we were pretty fucking wrong about you last year. Anything fun about them, Jed, to start this off?
No.
No.
Fuck Deion Sanders and that childish little bitch. No, fuck them all.
Are you talking about his son?
Yeah.
Which one?
No, I'm talking about Deion, actually. He's a childish fucking bitch.
Okay, I think Shador is too.
I feel like you're holding back. Would you tell us how you really feel?
Oh, God. I mean, if that helps our, algorithm and I just say Deion Sanders is a fucking childish little bitch, fine. Fuck it. I don't give a shit.
No one knows what it means.
I do.
That does get the people going, doesn't
God.
it? Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. As I do have a job.
As a media person.
I'll say in the same way that Colorado was able to expose Nebraska last year, I think Nebraska realistically could do something similar to them this year. And that Nebraska last year, you had Colorado riding high, a lot of momentum. They were really believing in themselves. You had a Nebraska team that was a little unsure of themselves. You saw some of the mental fortitude start to crumble as that game went on, especially when I think the defense got to the sideline and was looking at the offense like, hey, guys, what the hell are you guys doing? We're holding up our end of the bargain. What are you guys doing? I could totally see that flipping in the other direction here. I think Nebraska, another offseason of Matt Rhule, has probably gained fortitude from a mental point of view. As for Colorado, they are it's a revolving door of players coming in. It's a team of mercenaries. The questions that I have for them in terms of can they compete, what I've written down right here, can they develop mental fortitude? Because that's what lost them so many games at the end of last year. They were not a mentally tough team. I think that kind of comes from the top. That being said, I think they have a lot of talent. I think they have enough talent to go out and make a bowl game. That's the big question to me. Can they develop mental fortitude this season in time for the Nebraska game? Specifically with this game, I look at their offensive line. Revamped from last year. You have the 5-star tackle Jordan Seaton coming in. You have some transfers coming in. I think it's going to be improved offensive line. Again, as I said, I think this team has enough talent to make a bowl game. Just about anywhere on the field. I think you look at a position group and you say it's a position group that should be going 6-6, 7-5. Question is, can that offensive line gel and be a unit by week 2? Because you're going to have a Nebraska defensive line that has gelled, and Tony White is going to be trying to put that Colorado offense, I think, through blitzing, into a really, really tough spot. So can you pick it up as an offensive line that hasn't been playing together for very long? Those are kind of the questions that I have. I think the talent in this game is probably somewhat tight. Does Colorado have mental fortitude? Because it's going to be a tough environment you're walking into. There's going to be blood in the water, Memorial Stadium. That Nebraska team is going to be juiced up, wanting to get some revenge from last year. It's another question. Can Nebraska handle that moment? But I think it's a bigger question.
Can they handle
mark.
their own juice?
Yeah, that's a question.
That's a question that we still haven't seen answered under Rhule, because they've had those moments to be juiced at the end of this last season, and we fucked it up against Wisconsin, and we fucked it up against Iowa, and we fucked it up by not going to a bowl game because of it.
Yeah, but I think it's a bigger question here is, Colorado, do they have any sense of mental fortitude, especially given how the end of their season went last year?
Yeah.
I know it's new faces in, but same culture.
Mix that in with the fact that it will probably be the most rabid our fan base will have been in a long time.
Yes.
Miami 2014.
It's going to be insane in that stadium.
People are mentioning the Miami game. People are mentioning the last time USC played there when we were still decent. It's
Yeah, but like Matt said, the rabidness, we weren't rabid against USC because we didn't really hate them. We just wanted to beat them.
That's fair.
We hated Miami.
We hate Colorado.
We hate
that's
Colorado.
For damn sure.
That's
probably more than we hated Miami that
it's
year.
going to be an aggressive environment for them to come into.
Yes.
Like even whenever Oklahoma came to town a couple years ago, I know the result was bad. Like the fans weren't rabid about that game. Scott Frost just been fired, and everyone's like, all
everybody
right.
kind of expected what was going to happen in that game.
That's also a respectful rivalry.
Pick to win by a touchdown.
That's not a rivalry that you don't want to drive your car to for fear of getting keyed in the parking lot. Like that's, it's a completely different respect level there.
It also changes when we know we're going to get our ass kicked. So
That's a
why
fact,
get
too.
super pissed
Right.
off?
That's a fact too. That's a fact too.
We're picked to win by 7 points. It's going to be a completely different feel.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
and I think the biggest thing that I point to in this game when I'm just simply looking at the talent on the field is, okay, cool. You call it the 5-star, the top D tackle in the entire class that went, Dylan Riola teased a little bit that he might be looking at Nebraska last second. Ultimately, he wound up with Colorado. He's their best offensive lineman this year as a true freshman. As a true freshman, as that 5-star, if he would have come to Nebraska, he would not have started this game.
I don't know that I would say that he's Colorado's best. He might be their most talented, but I don't know that he's their best because they had 3 or 4 other guys that are going to be starting on that offensive line that have played a shit ton of snaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to sit here and say that a true freshman coming in, no matter how many stars he has behind his name, is better than those guys that have played for 3 or 4 years. He might be more talented. Best, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, especially in game 2 of your college career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in a rock and road environment.
Yes.
Good
And
luck.
that position,
And it's
like
a place where
playing
you have
the
an
offensive
opportunity to
line as a
come.
true freshman is fucking hard.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, no matter what happens with Colorado against North Dakota State, no matter how he looks, Tony White is going to have a plan to attack the true freshman early in that game.
Absolutely.
And see if you can get him swimming
I was-
mentally because
just-
blitz pickups from that left tackle spot
Just get
in
him
a
rattled.
rocking environment where you can't hear the checks, you can't hear the calls. Man, I think Tony White is going to absolutely attack him. And if he holds up early, you find something else, another weak spot you can try to attack. But that's got to be the first place you attack as a defensive line. Because the number one thing, I've run the Colorado playbook in NCAA 25, like College Football 25. It's pretty accurate based on what I watched last year. They like having Shedeur Sanders hold the ball and push the football downfield.
Yeah.
I don't think that changes all that much this season. I think they're going to have a better offensive line, but I still think there's going to be time for Nebraska's pass rushers to get home. So how do you attack that offensive
You
line?
basically treat that freshman offensive tackle like the Mike Tyson quote. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Exactly.
Punch him in the face and see what this true freshman can do.
And last year, we were in game 2 of Tony White's getting this defense together. We didn't know a lot of what we had. Ty Robinson was fresh off, getting back on the field from his injury. He wasn't the player that he is now. Most of these guys weren't the players that they are now, and they hadn't played together very much. There's a giant difference to me between an offensive line that, cool, they upgraded at every position, but they're just gelling, week 2 of the season, as opposed to we've now got a whole year under our belts as the same defensive unit coming back that already sacked Shedeur 8 times last year.
And not only the second game under Tony White with experienced players, but we had 2 prominent true freshman defensive linemen that were playing in their second college game of all time.
Yeah.
Cam Lenhard and Princewell.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the second game under Tony White. It was some of those guys that we relied on, their second game ever.
Not to mention, you're playing a lot of snaps because of your offense and you're at altitude.
Yeah.
A lot of factors came up not in Nebraska's favor this year. I think it's flipped in terms of what comes up in Nebraska's favor. I'm not saying Nebraska is going to win this game because, as I laid it out earlier, this Colorado team has enough talent to make a bowl game. They have talent on that roster. I just think I trust Matt Rhule's ability to put that talent together and get the most out of it, bring them together as a group, develop that mental fortitude more than I do out of Colorado. But we'll see come, September 6th?
7th.
7th? Excuse me.
7th.
Yep, Saturday the 7th. It's going to be big for me, too, to see whether or not we can handle the moment. Because, like I said, they're going to come out of that tunnel that night. It's a big-time night game. It's going to be the biggest atmospheric pressure career game for probably everybody that's going to be in that stadium.
Oh, yeah.
At least to that point.
Yeah.
We get further on down the season, we'll see what happens. But none of those guys have felt the type of, like you guys have already alluded to, the fan rabidness from our own fans cheering them on. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle the excitement when, yes, I think there's been too much made of it this week, but all of the hoopla that's being talked about, well, you guys get in front of people and all of a sudden you lose your heads and you don't do what you're supposed to do. If there's a bigger moment to do that.
We'll get to see a lot of what came out of that from this last week. I think he's addressing that issue head on.
Yep.
So the first time we're going to actually see if he was able to fix the issue will be this Colorado game.
Yeah.
We're not going to learn jack shit from UTEP.
No.
With Nebraska a 7-point favorite, I like it. I'm not willing to say I would take Nebraska with the points yet, but I would definitely call a Nebraska win here just because fuck Colorado.
I'll say, without touching the spread, I'd like to see a close game here. I think that's one thing Nebraska needs to prove, and I'd like to get that out of the way early in the season. Get a close game, see if you've fixed your scars. Have you pulled out the voodoo doll for 1-score losses?
I'd much rather beat them by 4 scores.
Yeah, that's more fun. But have you exercised those demons? I'd rather know that before
Yes.
you get into Big Ten play, and it's nice to be able to build confidence in that moment. The fans behind you, get a 1-score victory, move on, and hopefully put that behind you.
Oh yeah,
That's what I think would be an ideal result for the football team. But I'm with you. Nobody wants to deal with that heart attack in the second half if that's a close game,
no.
because that will not be fun. Well, it will be, but there's always that little bit of PTSD.
Yes.
But I think it would be good for the team as a whole if they're able to get a close win against Colorado. But I'm not touching the spread.
Jed, Matt, anything?
Go ahead.
Well, I'll take Nebraska to win it too, but I don't think they cover the spread.
Yeah.
In the first 7 games, this is one of my 3 games that I kind of have toss up, win or loss.
Sure.
I will lean closer to a win, but I wouldn't be stunned with a loss.
I'm with you on that. I do truly think this is going to be more of a toss-up game just because I am completely a Humpty Dumpty on a wall type of a situation with whether or not mentally we're there yet.
Yep.
I think we've got way more talent on the field this year than we did last.
For me, it's more about mentality than anything else.
Anybody want to play with the over-under? It's like 60 points.
Holy shit.
For some reason, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think they have enough on defense that, especially in their secondary, that they're going to be able to rattle Dillon a little bit. You might see some freshman mistakes back there. We're not going to, if anything, we're going to pound the rock on them and we'll wear them down in the second half. But I don't think it's going to be any 60-plus point game.
It was 50 points last year, so.
I guess it was, but we also gave them 4 turnovers on their side, on our side of the ball.
I'd err towards the under on that, but
yeah.
Let me see what the offense looks like against UTEP before I touch that.
I'd really like to see our defense hold them under 3 touchdowns, because that would also do a lot to ding the early Heisman hopes for Captain Douchebag. On to Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is another team that we just don't have that much to say about.
Do we really have to go that deep into this game?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Let's
be real. I mean,
Do we want to just pick what we think is going to happen and skip the fuck over it?
I'm calling a win. Would you call that a shock?
The way to lay out my quick points, I think the point spread's similar to UTEP. I think there's more of a mismatch here than there is in the UTEP game. Northern Iowa, not only have they lost players almost everywhere, 9 out of 11 starters they lost defensively last year. It's a transfer quarterback coming in. They're probably going to run the air raid, but we don't really know because they're on their 3rd offensive coordinator in the last 12 months. The name of the game for Northern Iowa has been turnover over the last 12 months, and that usually doesn't lend itself to success in a season, especially early in the year. I think this game is less close than the UTEP game just because there's so much uncertainty with this Northern Iowa team. I don't know what their offense is going to look like for sure. I know their offensive coordinator, I think it was a GA under Leach at Washington State, so we can assume they're probably going to air the rock out just a little bit. But
either that or you hate it and it's nothing but runs.
Yeah, but transfer quarterback coming in, 9 out of 11 new starters on defense. It just, none of these things I've laid out lend themselves to success against Nebraska, and that's probably where I'll leave it because I don't have all that much more research on Northern Iowa. I do have a buddy who works in Iowa. He covers Northern Iowa, so I think we're going to talk to him on our show by the time Northern Iowa week rolls around because Lord knows I won't be paying attention to the Panthers the first 2 weeks of the season. No offense, Northern Iowa fans, but
that's gonna be a tough week preview episode. Be a short one.
Yes, it will be.
You can tune in for about 10 minutes on that one, guys. We'll make sure we dig up some super fun facts for that.
9.5 minutes of jokes.
It'd be fun if Joey Gans was still there, but he's not.
Yeah, I didn't know he was ever.
Yeah, he was their quarterback's coach.
He was at least the quarterback's coach. I don't know. I
want to say he was quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator, and he followed their last OC to whatever school they went to, maybe Middle Tennessee State.
Oh, another one of those schools that I've never heard of before. Right on across the border over to Illinois then.
Yep.
Another game that in this first 7 out here, as we're cranking up Big Ten play, I am not concerned about anything that I'm seeing in the offseason coming out of Illinois other than the sweet-ass uniforms they're going to play against Michigan. because
those are pretty
those
nice.
helmets are cool as
Sick,
shit.
yeah.
But everybody's like, I don't know how to feel about this. I'm like, that is the most leather-like looking helmet thing that I've ever seen, and it looks cool as shit. Outside of that, they're going to get their dicks pounded that game, so I hope those uniforms go to something good afterwards. But I'm not concerned about this game. I think we've kind of already, I know that Jed and I talked a little bit about the downfall, it seems like, of Brett Bielema since he got to Illinois, how he just has regressed every year. It doesn't seem like that's going to stop this year, and that's just where I am. Do you guys have anything fun about this one?
I mean, I think that they could make a bowl game this year. Illinois could. I think they're right at that level of 5-7, 6-6. They have good linebackers coming back, but I mean, they got their quarterback coming back who led the conference in scramble yards, if that means anything. But
he also lost his top 2 targets last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's he lost his top 2 targets, his top tight end. He lost his running back. One of the backup running back transferred to Purdue.
Yep.
Like, this early in the season, specifically in Game 4 for us, I don't know that they'll be really, gelled enough to like really worry about this game for Nebraska. I don't really see, especially also that's going to be such a hyped game for Nebraska, being a Friday night, being the 400th consecutive sellout, being all that. I think Nebraska's got this pretty good.
Friday night on Fox, home game, obviously. We know the ACDC is going to be rolling in the third quarter break.
Yep.
It's going to be a fiery game, and hopefully we're coming in 3-0. They have to play Kansas in week 2. They're going to be coming in with already having taken a pretty big lump, is my guess, against Kansas. And they're going to be looking ahead to a top 10 Penn State the next week.
I don't know that they'll be looking ahead because they're not good enough to look ahead, but I get your point.
Very, very nearsighted.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say is this is just a game where Nebraska's offensive line really needs to take control. Illinois is going to be a defense-first team. That's how Bielema operates. It's going to be the same this year. As you laid out, strong linebackers. They're going to have a above average to strong secondary. Their offense, I don't quite know. They lost some top running backs. A lot of talent returning on the offensive line. Plus, I think they got a transfer in, if I remember correctly. Should be above average. Probably going to hand the ball off a lot, rely on the defense. That's a Bielema team. Going to be more of the same this year. If Nebraska's offensive line can establish a rushing attack, I don't think it's that nervous of a game for Nebraska. It might be low scoring, might be closer than you'd like it to be, but I still think Nebraska's got a pretty big advantage on this Illinois team. But that being said, Bielema's surprised a lot of people with a strong offensive line and a strong defense. That's what I think this team is going to be this year. So
the offensive tackle that transferred in, he's a big dude. He's 6'5", 320.
I'm glad you knew that off the top of your head.
He's a big one.
He's a big dude.
What is the spread for this game?
Nebraska's currently future favored by 10.
Yeah,
so
that's about right.
It sounded about right to me. The big thing for me is Illinois. We were able to establish a run game against them last year when they were supposedly one of the better defensive lines in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and their defensive line is not good this year.
No, they lost the 2 big guys that they were supposed to have that were supposed to be great last year, and they weren't.
Yep.
No, they were good. They were really
good.
fucking good last year.
They were good, but they were not as great as they were supposed to be, and they didn't stop our run game the way that they were expected to. And that's part of why, that combined with a really sweet goal line stand are why we won that game.
Yeah,
this is less of an even match this year to me.
For me with Illinois is like, so 2 years ago they had those 3 defensive backs that got drafted in the draft the following year.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year they had to replace those 3 guys and their secondary suffered. It's going to be kind of the same way where their defensive line had a couple of guys get drafted this year. They don't really have the guys to replace it, so their defensive line is going to suffer this year.
Yeah, I think their secondary will be improved from last year. They'll have good linebackers again, but if you are forced as a defensive coordinator to blitz to give teams issues, which I think this Illinois team is probably going to have to do this year, you are so susceptible to a quarterback with a big arm beating you deep once or twice a game, and I think
especially when you have nothing but speed on the outside.
Yeah, and if Nebraska can establish the run, it opens up the play action, and it's a way early projection to be making that, but that's the way I see that Illinois defense. That's the way I see the Nebraska offense is. I think Nebraska's offense, if they can get Illinois to be forced to blitz to stop the run, it's going to open up a lot through the air. And I don't see Nebraska getting tested all that hard, but still a long ways off, and we could be way off with the Illinois projection because that's Bielema's way.
Yeah.
Bielema loves coming into a season undervalued, and if this Illinois team is undervalued, it's going to be because they're able to run the football well. Altmaier is going to protect the football, and they're going to have a defense that they can rely upon.
Yep.
Just sounds like everybody's picking Nebraska.
I am, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's no doubt for me on that one. I kind of have this being a launching point for a more steady run for Dylan Raiola after having gotten his feet under him after a couple powder cakes here at the beginning of the season. We're on to Purdue. It's week 5, and we are finally playing a road game. It looks like we do have a time on this. It's 11 o'clock. I was just talking about this before the show. We heard that this is a homecoming game, and I thought for sure it was going to be a night game because the night games that I remember, or the homecoming games I remember watching of Purdue's, typically are under the lights. I know it's an unfriendly place to play, but
just for Nebraska for some reason.
Yeah. Well,
I guess Ohio State lost there once.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like they what do they call it? Quarterback Valley or something like that. They kill quarterbacks. I don't know. Something along those lines. It's one of those intros. It's one of the intros on the college football game. they throw in those little tidbits every once in a while, and you're like, okay.
And their tidbit is they kill quarterbacks?
I'm paraphrasing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I moved Nebraska back to the Big 12 in college football.
No shit.
25, yeah.
Did you really?
I rebuilt all the old conferences so much better.
I just know that when I think of Purdue, I think of killing quarterbacks.
Well, that's how to reference them. That's how to reference them. This one I was actually surprised when I saw the spread on because if I was to, when we've talked about Illinois and Purdue before when we were doing our Big Ten wraparound show, I really thought of Illinois and Purdue as a super similar team. I didn't expect them to be, a 5-point better game for us than Illinois. But that's what we're looking at here. What do we have on Purdue? Is it going to be their defensive side of the ball that we're a little bit more scared of here?
Spread's 5.5, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think their defense is the better part of the team, even though they're losing Nick Scorton.
Squirtin'.
And yes, I mistakenly said that Jenkins transferred out too, but he did not. I read that wrong.
You have both Jenkins and Karlaftis coming back in the linebacker spot.
But
George's little brother.
Also, that Dylan Thieneman is going to be a sophomore who had over 100 tackles last year, one of the best freshmen in the country last year. But as far as offensively, I don't know how they really are going to score much. They're going to have a good running game with Maccabee and Reggie Love, but they lost Deion Burks, one of the better receivers in the entire country, one of the most sought-after wide receivers in the transfer portal that went to Oklahoma. I don't really know how they push the ball down the field. I mean, they might come up with some receivers because they typically do, but I don't know how they're going to score a shit ton of points.
It's, to me, as you said, I think it's going to be a defense-first team. Strong rotation on the defensive line, good linebackers, Jenkins and Karlaftis.
Uh-huh.
Secondary, I think, should be improved. Offensively, though, you lost your top 4 pass catchers from last year. Hudson Card, it's his second year in this system, so you expect a slight jump from him, but that might get thrown out the window whenever the 4 guys that you were throwing the ball to most last year are all gone. It's they had like 85% of the targets last year.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was like almost all the targets went to these 4 guys. They're all gone. Can Hudson Card build a rapport with them? How does he do in year 2 of the offense? I do think this Purdue team is going to be better than Illinois. I think they're going to be fighting for a bowl game. I think they probably get into a bowl game. Don't quote me on that come 5 months from now. But
I was going to say, God, they have a tough stretch to get there.
Yeah,
they have a tough schedule.
I think
they do. They have a very. I don't have them in a bowl game only because of their schedule.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be a better team. Their schedule sucks.
I think they're going to be fighting for a bowl game.
They have 4 preseason top 7 teams on their schedule.
Yeah,
that's a wild run. And having to come off of Notre Dame and Oregon State back-to-back to play us, I know Oregon State's not going to be as good this year, but they're not going to be terrible.
No.
They're not going to fall off that quickly because they didn't lose that much. I don't see this being any tougher game for us than it is Illinois, other than the fact that it's at Purdue.
I could see, this is a game that scares me. It's the first game of the year where I think like Nebraska could get stung by a team that they're better than. Because Colorado.
First game on the road. Do you think that's
Colorado to me would not be a sting game if you lose because we know that Colorado has talent. This is the first game I look at where I go, there's a real chance Nebraska could get stung here if they don't take this one seriously. It's your first road game. It's Purdue, so it's probably not going to be the most rocking environment in West Lafayette. From a talent perspective, no one that Purdue has really jumps off the page. You beat them last year pretty solidly. All that being said, though, I think this Purdue team is going to be better than they were last year. It's year 2 under Walters. It's year 2 with your starting quarterback. Defense is going to be improved. I still think Nebraska has the talent advantage, but it's the first game that really makes me go, ooh, if Nebraska lost that one, it wouldn't shock me compared to the UTEPs and Northern Iowas and Illinois of the world.
That's fair. That's fair. The first road game does bother me a little bit. It'll be interesting to me because I think one of the main things that Rhule faulted himself with last year was not being prepared to go on the road for the first 2 weeks of the season. If we've seen anything, it's how much focus they will put on something that they thought was a real problem last year. I hope that he's tremendously fixed that, but you won't know until you know, and Purdue's our first chance to find out.
Yep.
Anything from Matt?
I think you guys covered it pretty soundly. I have absolutely no idea what to expect from Purdue this year.
Sounds like a typical Purdue year. Most people in the Big Ten like Purdue and
Brown
go,
moves on and it stays the same. Everything is the same.
So what's everybody picking?
I'm taking Nebraska in this one. I'm taking Nebraska in this one in what I think is a bigger win than what the Illinois one is.
Nebraska and the points?
Yeah.
5.5. Okay.
It's another one of those 50-50 games for me. Win or loss, I have no fucking clue. I'm closer to a loss than I am in the Colorado game. That doesn't mean I'm picking a loss. Well,
preseason Heisman favorite coming in Lincoln on week 2. You think that's a stronger win than a maybe Purdue team?
Yes, because of the hype around it. Typically, when you go to Purdue, as tough as it's been for Nebraska, I think one of the reasons why it's tough for not just Nebraska, a lot of teams to go into Purdue is you have to create your own energy because there's not a shit ton of people there.
It's like playing at Northwestern.
Yes. So creating your own energy in those situations, especially having a morning game to create your own energy, you're not going to have to do that against Colorado.
Don't get me wrong. They do have a stadium, unlike Northwestern now, but
Did you guys see the former Michigan offensive lineman? His name is escaping me, and I should know off the top of my head, but I don't. But he ranked all the Big Ten stadiums he played in by how loud they were. And I'm pretty sure Purdue was listed under the tier ranking, quarterback can talk to the sideline from the huddle.
What? Was this on Bussin' with the Boys?
No,
what's his name?
No, not Taylor Lewan.
No, this is a guy that he played at Nebraska in that 2021 game. I think he just graduated after the national championship last year, kind of a rotational piece in the offensive line. He just hopped on Twitter and had like a little
he was just running on Twitter, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Nebraska was at the top of the list. He said, can't hear your own thoughts.
Well, there you go.
Oh, no, it was can't hear the guy next to you in the huddle or something like that. But yeah, Northwestern and Purdue, as well as Indiana, I want to say, were the three that were quarterback can talk to the sideline from the huddle.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like Indiana might be a little bit of a different scope there this year. There's some excitement around that program, but we'll get there in one more team because we're going to talk about Rutgers first.
Matt, who do you have on the Purdue game?
Oh, my bad. I thought you already said.
Oh, Nebraska.
Okay.
I see us starting 5-0. So you're taking them as a loss?
Sure. It's the
Mark it down.
Maybe yes, no.
That's Jed's first loss of the night.
Not really, but
True fact. Hey, that's why I'm also recording these, so I can
That's
just
fine.
I can hold your feet to the fire later.
There we go.
Cool.
There we go.
I know what my end record is going to be, and I don't care how it gets there. That's the way it'll be. So
October 5th, we've got Rutgers coming to town, and in our first 7 games, I think this is our toughest matchup. This is the one that a lot of people think is our toughest matchup, and I'm guessing that's why Jed said this is the one you want to go to for sure, unless there was another reason.
no, I got offered these tickets, and I was like, yeah, I'll go.
There you go.
No.
Well, never mind then.
And they were free, so I'm like, yep.
Free 99 is always the best.
If it's free, it's for me, and give me 3.
Do they not know ball? Is it a giveaway? Like,
No,
I understand Rutgers is not the
it was a
sexiest
drawing.
matchup. But
It's a family thing. They have season tickets. They do
Okay.
names out of a drawing, and
Okay.
yeah.
that makes sense. I was going to say, is it just somebody who does not know that Rutgers
No.
is probably going to be pretty good this year?
No, it was a strict drawing.
I think they're going to be pretty good. I don't think that they're going to be the world beaters that some people are pegging them out to be. But Schiano is a culture guy. He built a good culture there the first time he was there, had him in the top 15-ish a couple different years. I don't think they're anywhere near close to being back to that, but he's in year 3 now of being back, and they're building something, especially on defense.
Oh, yeah, especially on defense. I mean, most of their defense returns. I know that they have Ethan Kaliak-Manis, the quarterback from Minnesota last
The
year.
Greek rifle.
Who didn't play well last year, but I also think that, and he has his offensive coordinator from Minnesota, Kirk Shiraka, also. I think Kirk Shiraka was basically choked out by that dick with one thumb.
What happened to his other thumb?
No, I don't know. He probably chewed it off. I don't fucking know.
I was wondering if that was some inside joke from the show that I didn't
None of us knew.
I mean, thumb
None
with
of
2
us-
thumbs, dick with 2 thumbs.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But now
dick
he's
with
got
a
1 thumb.
No, I'm just going to say I said it right, so fuck off. But
Dick with a thumb.
I think Kirk Shiraka's offense is better than what it was shown at Minnesota because I don't think PJ Fleck allowed him to actually run his actual offense. And I think
I just don't understand that because they were so bad anyway.
yeah, they were. But it's PJ Fleck. I
Yeah,
mean,
there you
he
go.
needs control over everything, and he thinks he's right. But I think
Who else
Cali
do we know
McManus,
like that?
I'm not going to sit here and say that Cali McManus is going to be great, but I think he's going to be better than what he showed at Minnesota. And I love the defense. I love Schiano as a coach. I think that they're going to be really good this year, mainly because of their schedule. We talked about Purdue, how I don't think that they're going to make a bowl game only because of their schedule. I think Rutgers is going to flourish mainly because of their schedule, because they don't play any of the top 5 projected teams in the Big Ten coming into the season. So I think that, Rutgers and Maryland are the only 2 teams in the entire country that have switched conferences that have never had a winning conference record since they switched conferences. And I think Rutgers is finally going to have one. One of the reasons why Maryland and Rutgers don't is because they always had to play Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan every single year. So that was 3 guaranteed losses. They don't have to play any of those teams. And I think that they're going to be really good.
I'd go as far as to say I think Rutgers, their floor is probably a bowl game. I think it's 6 wins. Whenever you look at their schedule.
Oh, he's on the hardcore hot seat if they don't make a bowl game.
Oh, my God.
I mean, you have a defense that is going to be super strong. Quietly, they had a top 25 passing defense in college football last year. Correct if I'm wrong there. I believe I have that note right.
I'll look it up.
Top 25 passing defense. They returned 10 of 13 key contributors on that defense. Cali McManus, as you laid out, he just has to be okay.
Yeah.
They're going to have a probably a strong run game, good offensive line. They got the running back, is it Monangai? Something like that?
Yeah,
Menangi.
Maybe Monangai.
Whatever. I don't pay attention to Rutgers.
Rutgers was a top 10 passing defense.
Wow. Shows what I know. I was close. Top 25.
Well, so they were top 25.
Yeah,
you were right.
Technically right.
You were not wrong.
Could have been more specific. But that defense should be able to carry a lot of weight for them.
Like Jed said, they're bringing a lot of people back.
Cali McManus needs to hand the ball off and be somewhat efficient offensively. That's kind of how I describe him. He just needs to be okay. If he can just be okay, I think this Rutgers team's floor is a bowl game, 6, if not 7 wins.
Their only preseason top 25 ranked team they've got to play is USC.
Yep.
That's it.
I mean, they could start the season undefeated before this Nebraska
And
game.
isn't that USC game at home?
No, it's at USC.
Okay.
But
I was going to say having USC
they
travel
play
all the way over.
They play UCLA the week before at home.
Okay.
But the big thing for me is I think that this is a game that I'm looking at Nebraska and Rutgers both being top 25 teams in Lincoln. We're going to see a top 25 matchup that might be kind of like your fake Big Noon Big Ten game because it's 2 undefeated top 25 teams. But I just don't see that if we're to this point of the season, because this is week 6 for us, if we're to this point of the season and we are still trying to figure out our offense, I'm scared of this game. But I have faith in the fact that our offense is going to be rolling a little bit by this point, especially after playing a few people that I think are going to be a little more down. I see us kind of pushing past this game, and it's going to be a decent-sized win for us. I'm taking Nebraska in this one. Nebraska's a futures pick of -5.5. I would take the points on that.
I got this game as a loss.
Chalk it up.
I don't know about chalk it up.
Back-to-back losses from Jed. I don't like that.
That's not what I said, but okay.
You said Purdue was a loss, too?
I said it might be.
That's what the sheet jam says.
That's not what my sheet says.
Well, sheet.
Wow,
I personally think you have back-to-back closer to toss-up games here with Purdue and Rutgers back-to-back. Purdue, because it's on the road, I think you have the talent advantage, but it's like Dylan Rilo's first true road game as a college football
That's
player.
true.
Tough place to be. With Rutgers, the passing defense is somewhat scary. It's a Schiano team. He always kind of instills a tough mentality within his team, similar to how Rhule does things. It's kind of a like-to-like thing. It helps Nebraska. They're playing this game at home, but I still would not go out on a limb here. What are we, almost a month and a half, a little more than this game, a month and 3 weeks before this game kicks off?
Yeah.
I would not be comfortable chalking it up as a W. I'm not going to put it as a loss either, but a complete toss-up game in my eyes in terms of what type of team do you get whenever both these teams show up on October 5th?
Low scoring, I would guess. That's my assumption.
Probably.
2 pretty good defenses, I have to assume. It'll be pretty low scoring.
Yeah.
What's nice is Nebraska, their rushing defense should be the strength of their defense. You might be able to keep Rutgers very, very low, talking below 14, below 17 points, as long as your offense isn't setting up Rutgers' offense with short fields. But at the same time, a really good passing defense means Nebraska might be forced to run the football. Rutgers might be able to pack the box just a little bit. I see it being pretty low scoring as well.
Gotcha.
Matt, what are you taking?
Well, I'm not picking us to win 11 games this year like I did last year. So this will be my first loss that I'm picking.
You're not going to get to the last one and then argue with me about the fact that you just picked them all to win?
Correct.
Oh, man. We are back on the road against Indiana the following week, October 19th, after a bye week, actually. Sorry about that. This is another one of the pointed out homecoming games that we're going to be taking part in. This is a completely different team. They kind of like Colorado have a shit ton of transfers in. A lot of them
31, isn't it?
But a lot of them isn't like more than half of that coming from James Madison, where the coaching staff all came from. So it's almost as if they're just continuing in the program. The guy's a lot of smoke. He kind of reminds me, like his bluster. Somebody should have showed him some of the Scott Frost tapes, maybe from Scott Frost's first couple press conferences in Nebraska, because it kind of reminds me a lot of that. A little bit of.
I'll be honest, I like him.
Well, we all said we like Scott Frost this first year too.
Well, I'm not an Indiana
Not all
fan,
of us.
but
Well, everyone in the country but you, Jed.
from the outside looking in, Cignetti is fun, and it's the type of, I think, energy that Indiana needs. Someone that is not like, okay, we're a basketball school, I'll do what I can. He's a guy that wants to turn Indiana into a football school. He's trying to do that through some excitement, getting Indiana's name out there. I respect it. I kind of like him. I think he's a fun addition to the Big Ten.
I'm not saying I dislike him. It reminds me a lot of Frost.
I can see that. I can see that too.
His bluster and his confidence, I guess I should say. But you got to fake it till you make it.
I like the quarterback transfer that they brought in from Ohio, Curtis O'Rourke. He's played a shit ton of fucking football.
Yep.
He played I'm pretty sure he started as a true freshman, and this is like his 12th.
So he was still
year.
there under Solich.
Well, this is like his 12th year in college. So yeah, I think he was there for Solich's first year. But
he
Like
started
a
something
double
stupid
PhD.
like it's like 40 games he started at quarterback.
Yeah.
Something
Oh my
stupid
God.
like that.
Yeah. So he comes with with experience, obviously new coaching staff, bringing in a shit ton of players from James Madison, who was great last year in their transition from FCS to FBS. I think coming in the halfway point of the season, pretty much, those types of players trying to get the transition of big boy football, if you will, they'll be bruised and battered, or they'll be hard-nosed and seasoned for this type of a game. I don't know what you want to put me down for as a win or a loss. Bottom line, in the first 7 games, I have us at 5-2. So if you already have me down for 2 losses, then I guess count me as a win.
Jed's picking a win on this one. Look at that.
Sure.
I definitely feel if Nebraska
Again, this is one of my 3 50-50 games between Purdue, Indiana, Colorado. I got 2 losses in those 3 games, so sure, whatever.
I will say, if Nebraska's undefeated going into this game, which is a big if, but if Nebraska's undefeated, you worry about the trap game nature
I was
here.
just going to say
with
that.
Ohio
Big time
State the
trap
week
game.
after. And we'll get to Ohio State whenever we get to them, but like this is a team that year one under a head coach, they're going to be doing a lot of learning as the year goes on. They're going to be getting better as the year goes on. They have an experienced quarterback. A lot of James Madison transfers coming in. Like most of their front 7 is James Madison transfers, which is where Indiana really struggled last year. Should be noted, James Madison, I know it's in a lesser conference, but they were 5th in the nation against the run last year.
They had 3 guys with double-digit tackles for loss.
Jesus.
And,
Yeah, they were good.
And two of those guys are now in Indiana, I want to say.
One of them was a senior, so I don't remember what the other 2 were.
I think
Something like that.
I think the other 2 are now at Indiana.
I would assume pretty much anybody that could play at Indiana followed him.
I would assume so.
I also know this team looks a lot different. There is still some returning talent from last year's team. Indiana had 4 losses last year in a 3-9 season by a total of 17 points. Illinois, Michigan State, Purdue, and Louisville. Those 4 losses was a total of 17 points. I'll do it. Illinois, Michigan State, and Purdue was a total of 10 points.
Wow.
In those losses. So this was not a team that was that far off last year. I think Tom Allen got a little bit stale on that team. I don't think the team necessarily responded to him great. Can an energetic, upbeat Cignetti, who brought in just a little bit of an influx of talent from James Madison, can he get them to a bowl game? I wouldn't be surprised. I think Nebraska should be the better team this year, but this is the ultimate trap game.
Well, you look at their schedule, and they have a really soft ramp up to get to us.
Yep.
You're running through a couple. I have no idea what division they even play in. 3 of your first 4. You've got UCLA, Maryland, Northwestern to get to Nebraska. They should be undefeated. This should be another, in my opinion, a bout of the undefeateds.
I wouldn't say should be undefeated, but they should be at least above 500.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll definitely be above 500. Otherwise, there's a real problem going on there. And then in that case, I'm not worried about this game at all. But either way, I'm calling this one just straight up. I'm calling us running in. When you looked at the last 3 games in a row, the 2 losses that Jed called against Purdue and Rutgers, from a football power index standpoint, of these 3 in this run, this is actually the best odds for Nebraska. Purdue was the worst. So I'm still taking the win here for Nebraska. As far as the future spread goes, it has Indiana at a +4, so Nebraska by 4. I take that easy. I think this is going to be a fun game for us, but it's definitely got that trap game written on it.
I love how we have.
I'm the positive boy here.
Sitting
Shocker.
here.
I'm shocked by that.
In the middle of August, we have October 19th spreads on games.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
can
they're
try
futures. You
and
can buy
pick.
value right now.
Don't ask where I got these spreads from because you can't get them over the table in Vegas.
Some of these you can buy value on, though.
Sometimes you just got to know a guy.
It's. I think it's going to be a really close game, especially since it's in Indiana. And I would chalk this one up as the ultimate coin flip. I'm taking a loss.
Oof. Either you guys want to say?
I already did.
Yeah, he picked a
All right.
win.
Win.
Sure, that's what I said.
And I'm just saying it's got trap game written all over it. I think Nebraska is the more talented team, but sometimes whenever you got a top probably 3 team looming the week after, you're going on the road, you feel great about yourself. This team has not won enough that if you are winning to feel like that, I think that they can stay in line and keep doing the same things they're doing. And I get really, really concerned if this team has too much success early in the season. You look at Indiana, this team has never dealt with success.
Should show us
if
a
they're
lot.
successful in the season, how do they deal with success?
Wait,
We're going to find out against Indiana, probably.
I was going to say, you're talking Indiana or Nebraska as far as not dealing with success?
Nebraska.
Because
Yeah,
I think
it
it's
applies to
both.
It'll show us a lot about where Rhule has their head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By this point.
I think the mental thing cannot be overstated this season, going into this season for Nebraska, just simply because we've filled the gaps in the talent. We've put the gaps. The players are there. The coaches are all there. It seems like everything is in line. Now, can we get our minds over the losing mentality? And that's, again, not trying to make more out of the close practice thing, but that's what this is all about in my mind. When you look at that Chasing Through episode where he's talking about, this is why we lose. This is why we lose. Everybody thought, oh, it's because of the fight. It wasn't because of the fight that he was having that conversation. It's about the fact that you weren't doing it right. You aren't doing the process that you know how to do the correct way. And hopefully he has it figured out by this point in the season. On to Ohio State.
Fun.
The only
I think
unanimous. Well, here's the thing. I think we all have this chalked up as a unanimous loss preseason, but the funnest talking point here is in a stretch of 4 games, they have to play Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State. That's going to be 4 probably top 10, top 15 defensive units this season, and we get to play them 3rd. And if there's an overlooked game on this schedule in this run, it's Nebraska.
My question is by the time October rolls around, will Nebraska still be the quote-unquote overlooked team? If Nebraska has the kind of success
If we're 7-0,
we
no.
think they could,
Yeah.
they're no longer an overlooked team. And last time Ohio State played Nebraska and they didn't overlook Nebraska was that thumping when College Game Day was in town.
That's true.
That was the last time Ohio State didn't overlook Nebraska, and they thrashed the Huskers.
That was a game that I got so drunk tailgating that I couldn't. I'm like, I can't go into this game. I'll get kicked out. And so I sat we had a TV out at the tailgate, and I remember it was like middle of the second quarter. We were like, fuck this. We packed up and went home. Because it was already like 30-0. You're talking about one of the last years Urban Meyer was around. Yeah.
Oh, no, that was Ryan Day's first year, I want to say.
Was it? Okay, that might be.
All I know,
Either way, it was
his
bad.
debut.
I was up
Jesus.
something stupid. I worked a morning radio shift. I think it was radio. I was up early that morning for some reason on the Friday before the game and was then up 46 hours before that Ohio State game because, let's see, I had a big class project to present that day for my ad PR class. So I was like doing finishing touches on that. And then I was working for Husker Vision at the time. And we had the Rick Ross concert Friday night for Husker basketball to kick off like Husker basketball something. So I was there filming. College Game Day's in town. So I run over to College Game Day, up all night there. And then I was working that Ohio State game for Husker Vision. So then I'm over at Husker Vision, snuck in like a 30-minute nap before our call time. Went and worked the entire Ohio State game, watched that thrashing. I was probably like hallucinating on the way home, and then finally got to bed like 46 hours later. It was a stupid day, totally not worth it.
Jesus.
But I was featured on College Game Day. Front row.
There you go.
Front row.
We were there. Me and Bassino were out there.
Anyway, back to this matchup.
You guys are doing everything you can to avoid talking about this game.
That's because it's going to be tough. And I think the only thing that could make this matchup more difficult is if they do drop that game against Oregon. Because then it's, we've got a probably top 15 Nebraska team that's undefeated coming to town, and we get to make an example out of a top 15 team to get right back in the voters' minds.
Mm.
That's all I got on this.
What I'll say, this Ohio State team on paper, I think is the most talented team in the country. And some people are going to be contrarian and say what Ohio State's done over the last couple seasons. They can't beat Michigan and say, I'm not sold on them. I am extremely sold on this Ohio State team. I think they could run the table this year. The only question marks that I have written down, can Will Howard be better than McCord? That's a question that I have. I think he can
Jed
be.
doesn't even think he's going to be the starter by the time we play him.
That's very possible.
I didn't say that.
Well, I thought you said the other guy that they had there. You thought was going to be starting.
He's a guy that could challenge it.
The other guy's Devin Brown,
Julian Sayin. Well, Devin Brown too, if he's actually healthy.
Yeah,
but they have three guys that are talented at least. Who knows if they can actually play? But Julian Sayin is that 5-star transfer quarterback from Alabama.
Yep.
But
I don't see a way that this team.
I'm not
isn't
sold on Will
playing
Howard
in the national championship for me.
My only question, you're bringing in Chip Kelly. Is he going to commit to the run? That's the only question. If you can have a more balanced attack than what they've had, you have two great running backs with Judkins and Henderson. Judkins.
You have a guy that probably was a top a third or fourth round draft pick in Henderson that came back that is probably your number 2 running back.
Yep. I love Judkins. I've been a somewhat bandwagon. Like if there's any SEC team that I claim, it's Ole Miss. Love Quinshon Judkins. That guy is a fantastic running back. Runs behind his pads, a lot bigger than you expect. Love him. If they feed those two guys behind that offensive line, take something off of Will Howard's plate, you have the receivers that really make teams pay whenever they start loading up against the run. And quietly, their defense is probably going to be one of the best units in the country.
The thing is, with what you said about Chip Kelly, he's a running offensive coach. So, I mean...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Ryan Day's offense at Ohio State has not been running the football.
Okay. I thought you were questioning Chip Kelly.
But I think that's why you bring in Chip Kelly.
I'm kind of questioning, is Chip Kelly going to be able to come in and say, hey, Ryan, we're running the football this year?
Okay.
Because you have the boatload of talent. You have the best wide receivers in the country, one of the best wide receivers coaches in Brian Hartline in the country. Is Chip Kelly going to be able to go in there and say, we're going to run the ball more? Okay. Sorry. Thank you for allowing me to clarify.
The way that I heard it, whatever.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to clarify. I appreciate that. But I'll say their defense is going to be elite. If you take out the Michigan game last year, the defense averaged less than 9 points or less than 10 points allowed per game. It was 9 and change outside the Michigan game. Their defense is going to be elite. Their offense is going to be elite. I could see this team running the table en route to a national championship. They're that good. I know there's some contrarians out there who are going to say, nah, I'm not sold on Ohio State. I'm 100% sold on Ohio State.
I'm only not sold on Ohio State because of their quarterback situation. Doesn't mean that they don't have talent in the room. I just don't know that they are, because last year they had all the talent in the world and they were a quarterback away from winning it. This year, they still might be a quarterback away from winning it all, even with all of the talent that they have. Mm-hmm. I'm not sold on their quarterback situation.
Upgraded their talent by 40%.
I don't know that they fully upgraded their talent because they were one of the most talented teams in the country last year too. They were just a quarterback away from being able to go to the playoff and win the damn thing.
That's fair.
I think they're probably talented enough to beat Nebraska this year.
And that's why I bring up the question with what is Chip Kelly going to do with that offense? Because if he's able to get that attack balance, less on the quarterback's plate, I don't see how anyone is going to be able to beat this Ohio State team, Oregon included. A lot of people circling that game. I think Ohio State clears them talent-wise by a good margin.
Oh, God, yeah.
Quietly, not as quietly, maybe for the folks around here, but they added who I think could be one of the best defensive players in the country next year in Caleb Downs from Alabama. Yep. That guy is legit. Everything he was chalked up to be in recruiting, balled out at Alabama. He's going to go ball out at Ohio State. That dude's legit. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. He's going to be a future All-Pro. Yep. He's that good. Ohio State added him. he's probably going to be the best player on an already loaded defense.
Yeah.
What is the ridiculous spread on this game?
Not enough.
Nebraska is a 20.5 point dog. I have seen this future spread as high as 24. It's probably right.
You know what's crazy?
estimation.
I could see Nebraska losing this game 42-20 and Husker fans still come out of this game saying, you know what? They played all right. That's just how good Ohio State is.
Kind of like the 2020 game where we got beat by like 3 touchdowns and everybody's like, I feel good about that
but for 3 quarters, we played really well.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you on that. I think that if we can keep this within 3 scores, I would feel very good about it. If we go in there and we absolutely get our dicks kicked in and it's a 40-point game, sure. It's going to feel like a letdown.
If it's the Michigan game from last year, I'm going to be a little upset.
Yeah, well, the Michigan game from last year, yes, because we imploded at almost every facet last year in the Michigan game.
Yeah.
I also think that as much as I talked up Ohio State, I think the talent differential between Michigan and Nebraska last year is probably greater than Ohio State and Nebraska is going to be this year. Still going to be a wide talent gap.
You think so?
That Michigan team last year is so undervalued for some reason. The offensive line, running attack, and defense that they had is some of the
only
best
won a
we've
natty.
seen. It's some of the best we've seen in the Big Ten, if not college football, over the past 5 to 10 years. Just in terms of how they beat you. That I loved that team from the start last year. Despite all the sign stealing stuff, I thought they were absolutely loaded.
I didn't think the sign stealing stuff mattered.
No,
That's
you on
just
that.
my personal opinion. Like, yes, cool. It sucks. It's cool to talk about fuck Michigan because we hate Michigan anyway. But at the same time, they were going to bludgeon you to death all year last year. I think if they had to play this year's Ohio State team, that wouldn't happen. But that's just me.
I think that'd be a damn good game. That's how good Michigan was last year. I'm saying, like, Michigan last year against Ohio State this year would probably be a really, really compelling matchup.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see how Michigan is this year because we're not going to get to them in this preview.
Nope. Not at all, which I'm okay with.
Thank God. Fuck that.
Do we have anything else on Ohio State, or are we good to move on? Because I don't want to think about that giant butthole they're going to punch in us.
Nope.
I'm far more excited about the next game.
Back home against UCLA. Nebraska is a 7-point favorite in this game, and I think for good reason. I personally don't think this coaching experiment that Jed talks about all the time. Yes, UCLA is not a blue blood.
No.
I would not call them at least a college football blue blood. But they shouldn't have gone and hired a position coach as their head coach.
No.
Somebody made the comment, Jim from Minnesota, the guy on Twitter, he was talking about how they took him over Tony White. I'm like, no. If Tony White had been offered that position and chose to accept it, that would have been their first choice over anybody else that they were taking in that round of things. I don't understand how you wind up with him in that situation, with the exception of the fact that they don't have any money, they don't have any fans in their stands, and their football program is essentially bleeding out. That's just kind of where I think they are. I think that's going to show by this point in the year. It's going to be a nice come home and get right game for Nebraska.
I agree.
As long as we come out of Ohio State reasonably healthy.
Yeah.
If we lose a quarterback and a couple running backs against Ohio State, that might be a different story.
Fucking mouth.
Knocking on all the wood. Knocking on all the wood.
Dude.
Can I say, and as an aside, I think PJ Fleck would have been a great hire for UCLA, and I think PJ Fleck's camp was floating that out there as a rumor last winter because PJ wanted to get out of Minnesota, but last year with Deshaun Foster, I'm not.
We just talked about that on a show about how
weeks ago.
I don't think he had a shot at that. PJ Fleck, I mean, we don't think he has a shot to go anywhere. No, nobody wants him.
If every single year his name's floating around, I think it's because his agents are like, Jesus Christ, get him out of Minnesota.
Well,
float him for every job.
He's not going to get fired
anytime
anytime soon because, I think after this year, his buyout's still like $22 million at Minnesota, and then after even
That's
next
a big
year,
chunk for them.
It's like $18 million.
Yeah.
His buyouts are ridiculous. So yeah, he ain't going anywhere. At least getting fired. That is.
And Minnesota's kind of stuck in football mediocrity.
Yeah. I'm okay with him still rowing the boats up there. That's fine.
But that being said, UCLA is not a step up. As you said, football is not a priority there. Chip Kelly got out for a damn reason because I don't think he saw a long-term vision for being able to win football games there. I look
He
at
also
this
kind of
UCLA
just
team
seems
this
like
year.
he's over-coaching, like as a head coach.
Yeah.
He
He
seemed like that since he left Philly, I thought.
I think he just wants to be an offensive mastermind,
Yeah.
which he probably is, and that's what he's going to be for Ohio State this year. But as for UCLA this year, I mean,
Well, they're losing so much. They're losing.
What can I say?
Defensively, they're basically from the outside edges. They're losing everybody. They're losing 33 sacks. They're losing 74 tackles for loss. They got some return guys going straight up the middle, but other than that, they're losing so many guys on the outside, specifically their cornerbacks, and like defensively, even going through 2 months of the season, coming into this Nebraska game, could they maybe get some stuff going together? I think they're going to get their ass kicked so fucking much that they're going to be like a shell of themselves even coming into this.
The number
game.
that I have is they've lost 9 out of 11 defensive starters. I believe that to be a rotational defensive lineman, a linebacker, and a safety.
And they also lost their defensive coordinator to their rival, to USC. Like,
you add on top of all of that, they're going to be getting their ass kicked all over the country because they're traveling so fucking much.
Let's not forget they lost their starting quarterback Dante Moore to Oregon.
Well, he started half the season, but he started the first half of the season. They're returning their back half of the season quarterback Ethan Garbers, but
Dante Moore was the guy I think you thought was the future of your program.
Well, yes, but there's also a reason why they benched him halfway through the season too.
He was young.
That was an interesting conversation. Going to the quarterback, it was an interesting conversation on Benning and Robbie's show in the morning. I think it was either today or yesterday. They had somebody on that was referencing the four new schools quarterbacks coming in this year to the Big Ten as being probably the 4 best odds to lead the Big Ten in passing. And I was like, that's interesting considering, Penn State and Ohio State's guys that are going to be out there and whoever the fuck winds up at Maryland. I don't know for sure, but I don't know much about UCLA's quarterback that's sticking around and whether or not he's going to be worth a damn.
I mean, I think Ethan Garbers is pretty good. I had heard on the Cover 3 podcast, Bud Elliott was talking up UCLA's wide receiver room. They're not very experienced, but he was talking about the talent in the wide receiver room is one of the tops in the entire Big Ten. So who the hell knows?
That's saying a lot when you look at some of the wide receiver rooms.
He wasn't putting them number 1 because he's not putting them above Ohio State. He's just, maybe top 5, at least in the conference.
Does that not make the hire of a defensive-minded head coach a little bit more confusing even?
For who? UCLA?
For UCLA.
He's an offensive guy.
Sean Foster?
Yeah, he was the running backs coach. He was a former UCLA running back.
You're right. You are right.
Regardless, I don't understand the hire of a position coach that has not even any coordinator experience.
I don't either.
At any Power 2 school, it just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe he's an up-and-coming superstar.
Maybe,
but if that's the case, that Nebraska game is going to be a lot different than I think it's going to be because I certainly think that's going to be a get-right game back home for Nebraska.
If you look at UCLA's schedule, they might be down on themselves at that point. They don't have a very fun schedule this year.
I mean, they will have gone through LSU, Oregon, Penn State back-to-back in weeks 3 through 5. And then they get to play Michigan, at Rutgers, and then at Nebraska.
Minnesota, Rutgers, and Nebraska.
Or excuse me, Minnesota, Rutgers, and Nebraska.
Big distinction between Minnesota and Michigan.
There is a big difference. But regardless, they're going to be limping hard after that stretch of week 3 to 5.
Well, and again, the travel... They had said that they travel over 22,000 miles, which is very close to being all the way around the fucking world.
Yeah.
Like,
the only real big thing for them is that they are going to have a week to go home and take off and get a little bit more rested up because we are coming at them after their bye week.
Yeah.
They're coming to us after their bye week.
They literally have to go to New York and then to Nebraska. They're all over the fucking map this year.
Well, they start going to Hawaii, then they come home, then they go all the way to LSU, and then they come home.
Didn't you guys say it's the most traveled
team
in the country?
Not even close.
It's by like 600 miles.
Well,
no, it's because even in the Big Ten, they're at 22,000. USC is at like 17,000. So it's like 5,000
Well, you think about Hawaii's and just from LA is 1,500?
A lot.
Something like that. So you've got an extra 3 right there. But
and then they go to Rutgers, like you're going
about as far as Hawaii is.
Yeah,
their over/under win total for this year is 5.5, and I'd look at the under.
I would too.
Just to let you know, if you are a bettor out there, I look at UCLA and I struggle to see any way they can get to 6 wins.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule.
Not to mention the fact what wins you football games in the Big Ten traditionally: defense, offensive line, running the football. They really don't have either of those things. I don't think.
No,
and they're going to be adjusting to the climate big time. We talked a lot in our Big Ten preview about the differences between the two teams that knew preseason that they were going to be adjusting to the Big Ten this year and what USC and UCLA had to do having that happen, 3/4 of the way through the season or at the end. Washington, not as much as Oregon, but Oregon seemed like a team that played as a Big Ten team last year. And I think that's why they were as competitive as they were. Washington just was so loaded in the trenches that they were ready for the Big Ten. I don't know how they are now. We don't know that much about Fisher?
Jed Fish.
Jed Fish.
Good first name. Bad spelling, but good first name. He has one too many D's in his name.
There you go. There you go.
He's the double D Jed.
It seems fishy.
So
But are we all dad jokes, man? Dad jokes for days. Are we all chalking that one up as a Nebraska win?
I am.
Yeah. All right. I'm just taking silence as yes. I'm taking silence as yes. Unless it's Ohio State.
If you're
over here.
doing math on their schedule, and then he said that he doesn't expect them to win 6 games, he might have inferred something here.
Yeah.
But we won't get him in trouble.
He definitely sent that one over to us. We get to play at USC the week after we play UCLA, or 2 weeks after we play UCLA, because we get a bye week in there. That's going to be a fun one for us, I think, because I personally have us at only 1 loss sitting coming into that game. Probably still a top 25 team, hopefully playing against a top 25 team under the lights at USC. It's going to be fun. It's going to be late. It'll probably be what, 8 or 9 o'clock kickoff for us.
It might be a 9:30 game.
Yeah, I'm
Big
like,
10 after dark.
how much fun would that be?
I would
doing
love it.
doing the Nebraska like that late. Like Jed will actually get to watch it. He won't be working.
I know. Well, maybe I might still be working at that time.
Yeah, it depends.
With my
you-
fucking job.
As you look at like the schedule of games that week, the times that would make the most sense, given that it's LA, would either be 5 o'clock local time, 7 o'clock Nebraska time, or 9:30
Yeah.
Lincoln time, 7:30 local time. So I'd be so down. Given our post game shows, a Big Ten after dark, where we're going live at 12:30 or 1 in the morning Lincoln time, would be absolutely awesome. I'm going to LA, so I'm looking forward to this
Oh,
one.
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a buddy who lives out there, works out there, so we got a little
Fuck
crew,
yeah.
little crew of guys going out there to go visit him.
Very cool,
Works
man.
for SpaceX.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's cool.
Cool job.
So he only gets to
Unfortunately,
live
he
there
has
for a
to
little bit longer. He's going to have to move to Texas.
No, the headquarters moving to Texas, but all the actual SpaceX stuff is still staying in.
Oh, I thought he was
LA.
moving everything out. That's
yeah,
crazy.
he made it seem like that. No, it's essentially just like his mailing address is going to change to Texas and everything
Well,
else stays in LA.
And therefore, your taxes
Yeah, his
change to
taxes
Texas.
change to
too.
Texas.
Yep.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
But as
Should I
far
go
as
back into this Joe Gans boxer guy, or
enough on Elon Musk.
Same thing.
We're back to the fish joke.
Just tell us about the goddamn mentality of kickers again. We'll get into that.
I don't know what to make of this USC team. Like I just got done saying, I don't think that they're built to play in the Big Ten yet. I don't really know how successful a 1-year flip and turnaround is going to be with their defensive coordinator coming over from UCLA.
Well, there's an interesting stat on that, but continue.
Well, I was about to reference Tony White and how no one was really convinced that he was going to be much of a flip and work very well in the Big Ten, and he was tremendous. So it's not to say it can't be done. Lincoln Riley's never really carried a good defense or a top-tier defense, so I don't know that I'm necessarily worried about that. My biggest question going into this game is going to be whether or not our offense and Dylan Raiola has matured enough to keep up with them, because they're going to score regardless of what our defense does. Even if we're a top 10 defense coming into this game, they're going to score. They're probably going to put up at least 28 points. Are we going to be able to keep up with that? Football Power Index, when it comes to the talent side of things, they don't expect it. This is one of our worst ones. It's our second worst one on our schedule. They're favored by over 74%. So to me, this I'm putting in as my second loss, but it's going to be a damn good game. I think it'll be pretty close.
I think this could be a good game. I think the defense, obviously the defense for USC is the big question mark. To me, they're the inverse of Nebraska, where last year Nebraska's offense was atrocious, their defense was great. Last year USC's defense was atrocious, their offense was still a top 5, top 10 defense or offense. Can their defense be adequate? Can our offense be adequate to go along with a really good defense, a really good offense, vice versa on the teams? Our weakness on our defense is probably our secondary. Lincoln Riley's going to chuck the ball around with a lot of good, talented wide receivers. I've got this game as a loss. I think it could be a very good, close game. If USC's defense can just be adequate, yeah, I think they're actually going to be pretty good. I think this game decides between USC and Nebraska who wins 7 games and who wins 8 games on the season, that is.
That makes
fair.
sense. I think it's going to really come down to whether or not our defense can make some stops.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we get into a shootout with USC, we're not going to win the game.
No.
And it's probably not even going to be close. So you nailed it. It's our secondary. They have to get the job done.
And one of the big things about their defense, they brought in a shit ton of transfers to bolster that defense. Of the guys that they transferred in, they have 111 combined starts. So they have experience to be able to play. And again, they brought over a really good defensive coordinator from UCLA. So
USC is a team that I consider an ultimate wild card in the Big Ten this year. I have no idea what their adjustment's going to look like. They could be great. They could go 10-2 next year. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yep.
They could struggle and go 6-6 and 7-5, and I wouldn't be surprised. What I'll say about the defense, D'Anton Lynn, I think that's his name. He was a defense coordinator at UCLA. He took them in one season from being, this is from Pro Football Focus. If you believe in the advanced analytics, it's the expected points per play. Their defense was outside the top 100 in expected points allowed per play. At UCLA, the next season, last year, they were top 10. He did that in one
So
offseason.
it's almost the same thing as what Tony White did.
Yeah. USC last year
Basically.
was outside the top 100 in the same metric. They brought in a lot of talent defensively. They have, based on recruiting acumen, some talent defensively. Can he do something similar? If he can, USC is going to be a scary football team.
they will.
They have great wide receivers, great talent at the skill positions. The question is going to be, can Miller Moss get those playmakers the ball in space? We only have a limited sample size on him playing in the bowl game last year. He was, I thought, somewhat impressive. I gave him like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. I think his receivers made a lot of plays to make him look better, but I still think he looked like a good quarterback. He's got a full offseason knowing he's the starter. I think they're going to put up points last year. My number one bullet point I have in my notes is we'll have to outscore teams. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I don't foresee the same kind of defensive turnaround. I think their defense is going to be better. The one thing I'll say is Lincoln Riley, in all his years coaching college football, has never had a high-level defense.
Yeah.
I think the buck stops with the head coach, so I'm not expecting USC to have a high-level defense, but with the talent they have offensively and with what Lincoln Riley has showed he can always do with his quarterbacks and his wide receivers, which is put up gaudy numbers and put up a lot of points, I think they're going to be able to outscore some teams this year. But it's probably the most unproven quarterback, which is saying something, dating back to, before he was ever head coach.
Sure.
He's had a lot of really, really good quarterbacks come through, a lot of them proven guys. Miller Moss maybe a little more unproven, but I still feel like he's probably going to have a really good year just because it's a Lincoln Riley offense with a lot of talent at wide receiver.
And like you said, he had the whole offseason knowing he was going to be the starter, so he's been working that way. The other thing that I think
Not
is...
only does he know he's going to be the starter, he was there at Big Ten Media Day, so he's definitely going to be the starter.
He's been anointed. I think a big thing for me in this game is where it's played. If this was being played in Lincoln, I think that the spread would be flipped the opposite side because right now it's the future is projected minus 5.5 USC. That number seems fair to me because of a lot of what you said about how he's never had a top tier defense the entire time he's been a head coach. A lot of that is the pressure that his offense puts on his defenses. We talked about this some with Scott Frost early in his career here at Nebraska based on how fast he wanted his offense to play.
Mm-hmm.
You can't play like that in the Big Ten, especially for an extended, excruciating Big Ten schedule, because you have to be able to give those defenses some time to relax and rest a little bit on the side, especially if you're going up against some behemoths. If our offensive line takes a huge step forward this year, this is a game I think is winnable. But for right now, I would probably take Nebraska plus 5.5, but USC to win.
Matt, what did you have?
I have this one as a loss. I don't think we're going to be able to keep up with them scoring-wise.
We'll see how much Husker red ends up in that stadium in November.
Last time we played there, it was pretty red.
I think it's
the Husker Alumni Association is doing a big. That's where their road game is going to. So
I know Californians for Nebraska is also a huge organization.
Arizonans for Nebraska, all
Vegas.
of those.
Vegas has
I know
a
some
huge
Arizonans
group.
that are going out there. There's going to be a lot of Husker fans out there that day, and that could be a factor that really helps Nebraska. But
it could be fun.
There's a shit ton of Nebraska fans. There's like 5 Nebraska bars in Vegas, like huge Nebraska bars in Vegas.
Yet another reason why I don't give a shit if it's a homecoming game for USC because most of that crowd is going to be Nebraska. So.
There's going to be a lot.
One
That's
last thing
for sure.
I'll say is I think we might have a completely different idea of USC by week 6 than what we have right now.
Yeah.
I have
Absolutely.
honestly almost no idea what to expect from them as they join the Big Ten.
I bet we see the line on that game change pretty tremendously.
Oh my God, yes.
By that point.
If you look at their schedule, and this is the weirdest thing to me, we actually talked about this in our Big Ten wraparound, but both UCLA and USC have LSU on their schedule in the first 3 weeks. It's weird. That's strange to me, but they have to test that defense against LSU in week 1.
It's going to be in the middle of my fantasy draft, I believe, for
NFL.
It's
going to be a good game to have on in the background. That's nice.
Well, it's been LSU, Florida State the past 2 years, and this year it's LSU, USC. Hell yeah.
That was a good game last year, too. And then they have to play Michigan in week 3. Like, their schedule is very spread out. I feel like our schedule is typically backloaded. It gets harder throughout the year. This is spread out to all hell because you got LSU, Michigan, Penn State, and then they get dinged with Notre Dame in the last game of the year. It's gonna be tough, and we'll see how their defense is holding up by the time they get to us.
Can you guys name the rivalry trophy that USC and Notre Dame play for? I'm gonna have to look this up. I didn't even know.
It's a shillelagh.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's a good
Go
one.
to Jed for your obscure facts.
Yeah.
No, that's one of my favorite trophies. I had to look it up because I couldn't remember the actual name for it because it's something.
I don't know the actual. It's something shillelagh though.
Yeah, it's like the golden shillelagh
Something
or
like
something
that.
like that, which is it's some Irish thing.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
even know
it's
what
basically an Irish stick.
stick. Yeah, it's like a walking stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Irish.
Well, not
golden-
really a walking. It's more of like a weapon.
Is it a weapon?
Yeah.
I thought it was like a walking stick.
No.
It's an
'Cause
Irish
it's
whacker.
It's only like
Irish
that.
beating
It's only
stick.
like that big. It's
yeah,
not like.
it's small.
Well, I guess that could be an Irish walking stick because they're midgets. So like
It's leprechauns.
Yeah.
Leprechauns.
we don't need to be PC on this show. We call them midgets.
Hey,
here.
I'm Irish. I don't give a shit.
Wisconsin.
By the way, I like how you're like, no, you have to be PC. You can't call them leprechauns. like my term is any better than his.
No. I said we're not PC on this
I
show.
know.
We call them midgets.
Yeah, like leprechauns is a better term for sure.
Yeah. But not only are they midgets, but they have red hair and they talk funny. But Wisconsin is one of the games that I am actually the most excited about for this season, just simply because I think we finally get over the hump. This is an interesting one to me. I love the fact that it's in Nebraska because I think it's going to kind of be the exact same type of game as the USC game. I think that if USC was at Nebraska, it'd be a win Nebraska. The fact that Wisconsin's playing at Nebraska, I like this one in another close game. A lot of people are downplaying the rebuild that Luke Fickell's doing. Nobody thought he was going to be able to do shit at Cincinnati, and he did with a lot less than what they have at Wisconsin right now. Wisconsin was not that far removed from being a perennial power good team. I don't think they're going to be bad this year. I know that you alluded to the fact that you share a different opinion on that, so I'm going to let you roll with this one.
Yeah. The one thing I look at is their schedule. Their schedule is freaking brutal.
Yep.
Into the Nebraska game, leading up to it, they go in consecutive weeks. I think there may be a bye week in there, but it's Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, and then Nebraska.
Yep.
4-week stretch.
Bye week between Iowa and Oregon.
And then they finish the year with Minnesota. Brutal back half of the schedule. They also have Alabama non-conference. What genius at Wisconsin.
Week 3, yeah.
Scheduled Bama, Barry Alvarez.
I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of these SEC Big Ten matchups in the first few weeks of the season.
That is a crazy non-conference matchup for year 2 of your rebuild.
And then they have USC the week after Bama. So it's like,
Wisconsin's schedule is
At
like
USC
could
too.
potentially be set up for them to crash and burn because of how much it could take their confidence away. What's also interesting is as they tried to make a stylistic switch last year, they did better in games where they ran the hell out of the ball, but Luke Fickell and Longo seemed really reluctant to run the ball all year long. Whenever they got 30 rushes in a game, 7-0. Whenever they got less than 30 rushes in a game, 0-6. And I understand you can't run the ball as much when you're playing from behind, so it's kind of a skewed statistic.
Yeah.
But
No, but they also have to work with what they have. And that was a running defensive team when they took it over.
they had an offensive line that excelled running the football, struggled protecting the passer. That was a story from last year. That offensive line struggled to protect the passer in a drop back scenario. Now Tyler Van Dyke comes in. Your offensive line.
Jed loves him, by the way.
It's not that I hate him. I don't think he's very good. Like when he got signed by Wisconsin, I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
You guys are going to suck.
I sent Jed a joking text about, Van Dyke's rumored to Nebraska now. He was like, "Oh, fucking please, hell no! I'd rather have Purdy start."
I'm kind of a Jed on this one. Like, I don't think Van Dyke's even an upgrade on Mordecai from
No.
last year.
No one knows what it means.
I don't think Tyler Van Dyke is all that good. What he needs to be better than Tanner Mordecai at is pushing the ball downfield. They still have some deep threats offensively. I think their offensive line is going to be better protecting the passer. They don't have a ground and pound type running back. It's Chaz Malusi coming back from injury. I think he's going to be more of the receiving elusive type back. This is going to look more like the offense that Phil Longo and Fickell want to run at Wisconsin this year. I'm just still not convinced they have the pieces in place, especially given the schedule. Their defense might keep them in some games. I think it's going to be an above-average defense, but offensively, it's going to look like what they want. I just don't know if they have a fully fleshed out roster to do what they want to do offensively.
I said this all of last season coming into last year that I don't think that the transition with what Phil Longo does on offense with what Wisconsin has is going to work, at least for year one. I always said year one. Year 2 or 3 could be a different conversation. But then they bring in Tyler Van Dyke, and it's not going to be a different conversation. Cool. He won the ACC Freshman of the Year in 2021, but he hasn't gotten better since then.
Yeah, you related him to
Adrian Martinez
hardcore.
Minus
the injuries.
That kind of sounds like an insult, but it was just more of okay, cool. He had a great freshman year, but he just stayed like this. At bare minimum, he stayed even. He never got better. And that's
is that a coaching thing at Miami, or is that a him thing?
I mean, probably, but you're coming into a new, totally new system year one. Do you expect a upward trajectory year one for a complete? I
don't think his weapons at Wisconsin are better than what he had at Miami. He's got DK.
The weather certainly won't be.
I think DK's gone, but Will Pauling's back.
Did DK transfer?
I thought he was done.
Transfer.
I mean, they also lost their best running back.
I do know they have Pauling back.
Chaz Malusi is a very good running back, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy.
And also just came off a significant knee injury. I remember that because I had Braylon Allen on my team, college fantasy last year, and I was like, why the hell does Wisconsin keep on handing it to this Malusi dude? And I even sent an angry text off to somebody, and 3 plays later, Chaz Malusi tore up his knee, and I went, this is my fault.
Oh, wow. I did that. Oh, shit. There's a delay from TV. This happened as I sent that text.
I mean, why did this have to happen before the Nebraska game? Because obviously Braylon Allen's going to run all over Nebraska, and he kind of did.
DK was a senior last year. Granted, with the COVID shit,
we
don't know that means he's gone, but he's not at Wisconsin. I can just say that.
But yeah, I'm not sold on this Wisconsin team. Look up their schedule and see if you can find 6 surefire wins, because I sure as hell can't.
I don't either.
I think when we did our Big Ten wraparound, that's where we capped it with 6.
I can find 4 or 5 pretty surefire wins. I cannot find a 6th.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a couple toss-up games in there. I would not be surprised to see Wisconsin miss a bowl game, though.
No.
I think we counted Nebraska as one of the toss-up games, but I have Nebraska winning that game. I have, it's only 1.5. I'll take that. I think that maybe by that point of the season, if the season's going the way that I think, that spread's going to look more closer to probably a touchdown, because Nebraska will only be a 2-loss ranked team at that point, and Wisconsin will not.
The one thing I will say is if Wisconsin's coming off of 3 losses, you question what they're going to be like. Are they going to be a pissed off, fired up team coming in to play Nebraska, seeing an opportunity, considering what you've done in the past couple years to Nebraska? Or are you going to be a down on yourself team thinking, oh man, we're going to miss a bowl game. We're at 4 wins here. We need to be perfect against Nebraska and Minnesota. We're so fucked. Or are you at 5 wins saying, all right, we have 2 games against Nebraska and Minnesota to get 1. Let's play our best football at the end of the season, get to a bowl game here. I don't quite know. But yeah, I don't see this being. Some people are high on Wisconsin this year because they're high on Fickle. You look at the roster, I'm not high on Wisconsin.
Nope. You don't see it?
I like Fickle as a coach. He's Nebraska's second choice for a reason. I just don't think what he is trying to put together at Wisconsin makes sense for what they have been and what they recruit to.
Checks out. I think this is going to be a very similar game to last year, just in the other direction. I think where it's played is going to be a big factor. I think them coming in beat up after who they've played for the whole season is going to be a big factor. So I'm taking this as a close win for Nebraska.
We have confirmed here off mic, DK transferred to Florida.
Florida.
Where he's going to win 4 games.
There you go. Looking at this, Purdue is the exact same FPI against Nebraska as what Wisconsin is, and that's shocking to me. Because primarily what you're looking at on that is talent on your roster right now. That's crazy.
I tend to agree with that.
That makes me feel way better about the Wisconsin game now than anything else that we've talked about.
Jen, where did you say you landed on that?
I think with these last 2 games, I think both of them are toss-ups ultimately. You can say win or loss on either one of them. So I will just say, I guess I'm already giving away what I'm going to say for Iowa, but with Wisconsin coming off of that 3-game stretch leading into the Nebraska game, with it being at home, I'll take the win for Nebraska.
You want to say anything?
Oh, I'll just say
I'm kidding.
Going into these last two games, Nebraska better have their 6 wins, or else I will be fully clinched for both of those games against Wisconsin and Iowa. But I do like Nebraska's chances against Wisconsin, and that's more just because I've been an ultimate Wisconsin hater this offseason. I do not think that they are going to be what some national media members think they are.
I agree.
Yeah, heading into the Iowa game, I think first of all, I'm stoked that it's a night game for the first time on that Friday. That is something that I've wanted and I've not understood. If you're going to play a Friday after Thanksgiving game, so many people have traveled. So many people have traveled to see family. If you're going to get the stadium full, if you're going to get people to these games, you've got to make them later. 2:30 is not late enough. And we're getting the latest game that we've played on a Black Friday game against Iowa. I'm excited about it. At this point in the season, for me, if you've been following along, I'm at 2-9. I think we're heading for
2-9.
9-2. I'm sorry. My bad. We're at 9-2.
Our only wins come with Ohio State.
And I'm
Nebraska, UTEP, and Northern Iowa. Aside from that, it's been a rough year.
Yeah, it's been super rough, guys. We're actually starting out 3-0, and then it's over. I'm legitimately looking for tickets at this point, and I'm getting that game, whatever it's going to take. Because
have you been to Iowa City?
No, I have not been there for a game yet.
Great time. Fans can be dicks if you're wearing Husker gear, but honestly, it's more friendly than a lot of rivalries.
I was going to say it's also a respected rival. Yeah, it's fuck you, but hey, let's go have a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that. I have a ton of Iowa fan friends. I know a couple people that live out there. We have cousins that live there. It would be a great time to go and just tailgate for the game. But if we're looking for either our 9th or our 10th win, I said it upstairs before we came down for this show. I'm getting tickets to that game regardless of what I have to do to get it done. It's going to be an exciting one. I think we saw that Nebraska, the last 2 years, the Iowa-Nebraska game has been the outlier for the entire season for both teams for the most part. Last year, it was, again, we referenced it earlier in the show, a step on our dicks moment to just roll into the offseason with another pitter-putter loss, the same way that we've been doing it. If I'm already projecting us to be 9-2 rolling into Iowa at this point, I'm fully expecting that we've gotten some things figured out, and that type of piss it down our leg moment doesn't happen anymore. I'm calling a Nebraska win on this one, even though FPI has Iowa, I think, a 59% favorite on this. When we're looking at these futures, we've got Iowa as a 3-point favorite. I think by the time that gets here, this is going to look like a completely different line. Whether or not Iowa has any semblance of an offense, that's going to be something.
I was going to say, do we expect Iowa to score any points this year?
I expect they're going to figure it out better than they were last year. That's all I can say.
They're not going to be an offense-first team, if that's what you're asking.
No.
No, I'm not saying their defense won't score points. I'm saying they don't even know if they're going to have a quarterback right now.
They might win games 14-3 instead of 7-3 this year.
Well, I mean,
that's kind of my feel for Iowa.
Their defense is going to be as good as it was last year.
Yes,
in my opinion. And the big thing that you're going to look at with them, especially when we're getting them, they're coming off a pretty simple stretch. And overall, their schedule's not hard at all.
No.
I mean, they have to play Ohio State in week 5. But outside of that, there's not a preseason ranked team on their schedule. And leading up to it, they're going to be at Maryland. But prior to that, it's UCLA, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Michigan State.
Everybody always liked to say in previous years, the Big East schedule is easy. They might not have a Big East schedule, but they have a Big Ten East schedule, or West. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nebraska and Iowa are both going to have pretty favorable schedules coming into this one. If things go the way that people within each program think this season can go, this could be a game where both teams are fighting for one last win for your college football playoff resume.
It's true.
Which is a wild thing to say.
I just got fucking goosebumps. That's crazy.
Like,
not for us.
You have Nebraska at 9-2.
You just said both teams could be playing for this.
One team might be.
I think both. If he's right here,
if I'm right, both teams are playing for this.
If you have Nebraska at
9-2 in Nebraska,
you're right.
Yeah,
I'm just
I think Iowa's got a better shot at it.
I'm just busting his balls.
Like, don't get me wrong here, but if you have an Iowa team that could legitimately be 10-1, if not 9-2,
yes,
a Nebraska team that could be 8-3, 9-2, you might be fighting for one last pelt to sling over your shoulder for the College Football Playoff Committee to look at and say, you know what, that's the team that we're going to bring in, the fourth team from the Big Ten. And I think this is a year that it's pretty consistently going to be 3, but more likely 4 teams every year from the Big Ten getting in. 10-2 is going to put you in that conversation. could be a game where both teams on Black Friday are playing under the lights at Kinnick for a chance at a college football playoff berth.
And playing under the lights at Kinnick is a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, because it's similar to Nebraska. All the fans outside are getting bush lighted up all day. And
I believe they call that getting bush lit.
Yeah. I have had the time of my life tailgating outside some Nebraska-Iowa games in Iowa City. They have a great spot. It's right across the street from their student section interests. It's essentially like a block that is just the North Bottoms compared to if you compare it to Lincoln.
Yep.
But it's just like all these college houses. I am talking legitimately directly across where the Champions Club is at Nebraska is where they have just this row of party houses.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
And all the college kids love hanging out there. A couple years ago, I had the time of my life at those houses. That was 2019. I had a great time with a couple of friends who went to Iowa. One who was a football player at Iowa State, but was entering the portal and was not with the Iowa State football team anymore. So he was getting lit up too that game.
He didn't care what color he wore.
Yeah, he's rooting for Iowa. It's crazy. But anyway, had the time of my life. If you go out to Iowa City, it's a great time. I did one time I was traveling with the Husker baseball team for my work with Husker Vision, and like you will have the occasional fan like I ran into that rolled his window down just to yell "Fuck Nebraska" at me and drive off because I was wearing a Nebraska polo. I'm like, hey man, like
cool.
I respect
I'm working.
that. I respect it.
I'm working. But anyway, like there are those people, but it's a mostly friendly rivalry. Similar to Nebraska fans, you may get somebody to offer you a bush light while you're there.
Sure.
Highly recommend you go
Fireball
out.
shooter.
I think it's going to be a really great game. If you're a Chiefs fan, you can listen to the Chiefs on the radio as you drive out to Iowa City that day. Yeah, fuck the Chiefs.
We're all in agreement with that. We won't all agree on this game, but we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah, but it's a great chance to drive out there. I think it should be a fantastic game. As for Iowa, get into the points here. Elite defense yet again. We've gone over that. They don't really have a standout pass rusher this year. Don't think it's going to matter. They're still Iowa defense. They have 4 solid guys up there, and if they have to blitz, they have probably the best linebacker core in the country.
Yep.
Jay Higgins sat down with us at Big Ten Media Days last year. Love that guy. Great head on his shoulders. Great football player. One of the best in the Big Ten at the linebacker spot. Offensively, I think it might be one of those things where it's like, oh, the offense is revamped, and they've gone from 12 passes a game to 16 passes a game.
Jesus.
Which would still be revamped for them.
Where is this offensive coordinator coming from?
Tim Lester, he was at Western Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember who it was that I was listening to said this on the radio. It might have even been on your show. I don't remember for sure. It was one of the few times I listened to it
Western
last
or Central
week.
Michigan? One of those Michigan
Western,
schools.
pretty sure.
They were basically talking. You know what? Actually, I think it was on the Locked On podcast. They were talking about Connor Happer made this comment about how they felt like maybe this offensive coordinator hire was just rubbing it in the eye of the new AD because they made him fire his son.
Oh yeah, I did hear somebody talking about that.
And that it was just, it's like this is just a spiteful hire, and this is going to be some sort of the start of a downfall of the Kirk Ferentz time at Iowa, and this is all going to come down in a blaze of hellfire. I don't see that happening. I personally unfortunately, this is our 3rd loss on the season for me, just simply because it's under the lights at Kinnick.
Yeah. And what I'll say about Lester is, I still think he's going to be very hamstrung by the Ferentz way. I think Brian Ferentz gets a lot of arrows. I don't think it was his fault. I think Kirk Ferentz has a very specific way he wants his offense to run.
I agree.
Risk averse, put it in the hands of your defense. We'll take advantage of our opportunities when we can. I think Lester's going to have a very similar vision for what he is supposed to carry out. I think he's probably going to bring a slightly revamped passing game, similar power running attack. The question with Iowa is, can they get the ball in the hands of Lachey, one of the best tight ends in the country? Who would have thought Iowa has a great tight end?
Oh, it's weird.
Lachey is fantastic. That's all Cade McNamara's job is going to be this year, is get the ball to Lachey, let him go do something with it after the catch. I think they'll be a little bit more exciting offensively. Nothing groundbreaking, but I think they'll put up a few more points. It's going to be a tough game for Nebraska to go out and win, but at the end of the day, in a rivalry game where potentially both teams are playing for a chance to make a college football playoff, which pipe dream, but hey, it's more fun preseason to think that way than the alternative. You got to throw some things out the window in a game like that. And I'm not going to touch the spread. I'm not going to touch who I think is going to win that football game. I'll just say I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and stylistically should be an interesting matchup too.
Ultimately, I have Nebraska at 7-5, so I have to have them as a loss for this game.
So I'm going to be the only one taking them as a win.
Okay.
It might be 6-3, but I'm taking them as a win.
Well, I think when you look at their offense, if they're going to struggle to pass the ball, the big question I have then is how are they going to move the ball? Because from what I'm hearing, There's more concerns about their run game than there is their pass game because they don't really have a running back.
Well, it's more, I think, their offensive line. Their offensive line is
they
not
returned 4 starters, though.
But
if
you pull up the stats from last year, they're not as vaunted as you would traditionally expect an Iowa offensive line to be. They're still top half of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
They also lost their best O-line coach, Brian Ferentz.
Yep. So,
I'm just saying they have at least experienced guys coming back. What does that mean as far as the talent-wise? Well, who knows? But
if you're expecting an Iowa offense, though, that's going to pick up 20-plus first downs in a game, you're probably going to be sorely disappointed. That's not what they're going to be. They're still going to be Iowa. I just think there will be a little bit more oomph to their offense. It's not going to be as limp dick as the past 3 years.
Gotta love the limp dick Iowa offense.
So Tim Lester brought his Viagra.
Well, we haven't even talked about their new Aussie punter.
Sure.
Wait, well, I didn't even know about this guy. No.
Yeah, because Taylor,
it's an actual kangaroo.
Taylor graduated, so
Jesus,
pump that ball a mile.
with 2 feet.
He's the most jacked punter in the world. He wants to start a fight with everybody that sees.
He catches the ball, sits back on his tail, and kicks it with 2 feet.
That would be terrifying. Could you imagine? No one would rush the punter. No one. I am not getting close to blocking that thing. Absolutely not.
Sounds like the worst Air Bud movie ever. Punting kangaroo. He doesn't do shit except come out there on 4th down.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
No shit.
Yeah, no, but new punter at Iowa, they're very high on what he can be. So
sounds like a very Iowa thing to be high on.
Well, I mean, you have to have a good punter at Iowa, especially if you're going to struggle to move the ball. Is that
Iowa has a good punter and a really good tight end. Shocked by this.
Well, hey, is it like just thinking about Iowa? They don't have to play a tough schedule by any stretch, but them having a punter that can flip the field is an essential part of their success. And is there any concern that they're going to be turning to a true freshman guy coming in doing that's probably not been playing American football for very long?
Well, he is apparently. So we talked with Scott Dochterman at Media Days.
Most of those guys are 35 when they come over here as a punter. I mean,
well, they had one of the top punters in the country. Like I think it was like an hour south of Iowa City. Some high schooler that just had crazy. The Cole Kicking Academy had like crazy projections for him, and he ended up going to Arkansas. I want to say somewhere not named Iowa because Iowa had this rugby-style punter from Australia that they're super high on that they think is going to be the next big thing, the next, like...
Wow.
The next little long line
if there's
of
anybody
Iowa
that
punters.
knows punters, it's Kirk Ferentz. So.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes, but more rugby-style this year, which is a slight departure from Taylor.
That'll be interesting.
Who's with the Bears now? Is that right? I think he is.
Probably. They had, like, the best draft of anybody by tenfold, in my opinion.
He's going to be so disappointed with an actual offense that doesn't get 14
What do you
punts
mean
a
I don't
game?
get a punt 15 times a day? This is bullshit.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.